That's way cattywampus. Somehow it got rotated. Okay, that's what's going on. Okay. Close enough. Ha! Now we got it. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, Chris. I hear it's a little bit drippy over there. Yeah, Canadian, things are going just fine. I see you're starting to make a few more videos up there. Haven't had much chance to look at much lately, though. Racing the winter here. Hello, Jeff. Yeah, it's kind of hard to be very definitive from videos, Jeff. Maybe next summer we can get together and take a look at a little more detail. Hello, Tripping. Let's see. How bad is it at your place, Chris? I know you guys were supposed to be getting swamptified. Here is just a little bit of drizzle today, nothing important. I guess that means that would be a roof leak, Chris. Oh, yeah, it's been kind of a drippy day, but the kind where when you have a old 76 Chevy pickup, you wish you had intermittent wipers. Let's see. A little bit cold. Not bad, though. About 40 or something. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow vis-a-vis that, because I've got stuff to crush and reload out at the ranch too, and it's just out in the rain right now in buckets. Hopefully it won't be too much. Hey, Terry. Well, let's see. Start with I do not have any test results yet from the resin setup, so I really don't know how well it's working. I was having a little bit of problems with particulate plugging in some of the things there, so I moved all the resin back one stage and put in a particulate filter this morning, and it was working good for the couple hours I was there. Wow, Chris got 12 inches of rain overnight. Man, that's bad. Hello, Sean. What's the weather like in Edmonton? Over here, it's cool but not cold, drippy. Where down in California, there has been wetter than can be. I think Chris is drawing up plans for an arc just in case. But anyhow, so I really can't tell what the effectiveness of the resin columns is at this point. Once I get some sort of feedback from the lab, then I can start dialing it in. Hi, Edward. And the Gold Panner. And so once I get some information, we'll go from there. In the meantime, I'm just running it when I can. Due to the power restrictions where I have to run a generator for long periods of power drain because of the solar system, like cloudy days like this, it doesn't do hardly anything. And we don't like to leave a generator running unattended, so it kind of limits what I can do. Man, Chris he had 4 pumps running and still had to push room another couple thousand gallons down the walkway away from the house. Hey, Tricky Dicky. I haven't had a chance yet. I have been so busy. I figure that I'll probably get onto that this winter, racing the freeze up. And I just, man, Eva can tell you, I get a little grumpy. It's like there's not enough hours in the day. I was actually at the hardware store this morning. I had to drive there with my headlights on. And got there just after they opened at 7:30. Got what I needed, then headed out to the ranch, worked there, came back, then started doing other stuff. And I got about a 1-hour break this afternoon before this. Somebody sent me a GoPro, a really nice set. I believe it's Walt. And it's a really nice set. I was just checking a little bit on the internet, and that was a pretty expensive setup. It wasn't just the GoPro, it was some other stuff too. And so it was a very, very nice present, and I really appreciate it. And it's going to take me time to get it figured out. And right now, time is at a premium, as I can feel the glaciers coming. And luckily, the 10-day forecast still has it basically just dropping down to freezing, because there comes a point where I'm going to have to evacuate. I'm going to have to drain all the plumbing at the ranch, the filter housings and all that other stuff, and evacuate all the liquid chemicals back here so they don't freeze up. Hi, Roberts. And so it's just going to stop me there. Probably, depending on how much snow comes down. I hope not, Chris. That would kind of mess my plans up. But the workout at Montana Bee, on the other hand, doesn't worry about the temperature so much as it just does when do we get a bunch of snow. Sooner or later, it's going to get snowed in for the winter, and then we're going to be kind of screwed. I'm trying to get as much stuff ore at the ranch as possible. Yeah, but I didn't have an extra cartridge and a few other little things, so I just got a standard, one of those like twine wound cartridges. Actually, I got 2 because you have to buy them in pairs. Yep. And so voila. Anyhow, so that's why the number one priority is get what I can get done out at the ranch first. And number 2 is get Montana Bee up and running. We worked pretty hard, the claim owner and myself, on Saturday, getting rock broken and that first timber set in. It's still not final in there, as the more eagle-eyed of you might have noticed at the end of the video. The bottoms of the posts are still canted inward. And not only is that not the best way to hold up a load, but I have to have a certain amount of clearance for the ladder track and the carriage that runs on it. And it's not where it needs to be. So I'm going to have to go in there and put the roof jack back in to hold up the cap again, pull the post back, and widen out the ribs, at least where the posts are. And then set them back in, put the spreader bar and the cross tie that supports the ladder track. That's the first support on the ladder track. And so I need to get that in. Plan is to go out there Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday, depending upon how things go. I would like to get the first 3-foot section of ladder track, the temporary 3-footer. As you dig down, I have short pieces that add on until you finally get enough to a 10-foot section. Then you pull them all out and put in a 10-foot and repeat the process. But I'd like to get that first 3-footer in properly and anchored properly. I would also like to get the second timber set in there. And the big problem is going to be actually hoisting the rock out of there, because if the claim owner isn't helping me, I'm going to have to get the head frame set up and the carriage running. And so I'm going to have to, I've got a little piece of 2-foot ladder track, and I'm probably going to have to put it in backwards so that it's sticking up from the support, and maybe prop the far side of the head frame up 6 inches. That should be 6 inches higher than I want. And that'll allow me to get the carriage running, and then Eva can do the hoisting. And that'll, make life a lot easier. Hello, Thalia. By the way, the that comment you left on the video, I could see it in my notifications, but when I clicked on it to go to the thing, it wasn't there. I couldn't figure out how to find it and reply to it. So anyhow, it did show up, and Eva's doing great.
Hi, Talia. Gonna be on later.
But that's why you didn't see a reply from me. Also, that fire that we were doing there, oh, that's nice and warm, Sean. That was to some extent for warm, but there's a lot of old timber up there that is just rotten, basically. There was a lot of like 1-by up there. They built I presume it was a hoist shack and stuff there. That's just, literally I can stomp it into pieces. And so we're trying to get rid of all the trash lumber up there and clean the place up some. The stuff that's potentially usable, we are saving and setting off to the side. But that's actually, we're cleaning up the area there a bit too, along with having something nice and warm. More important for Eva than with me, since I'm usually working pretty hard. And so it was going pretty well. The minor bago's nice and warm at night. Ooh, that reminds me, I'm supposed to get propane tomorrow in the morning. There's my little list of things here. Yeah, I got that taken care of. Go to doctor. Yep. I had a pen somewhere. Get propane. I think we still got plenty in that tank, but I don't know. The only way to find out for sure is either unstrap it and pick it up, which is a little imprecise, or just fill it up. So we'll take the barbecue, the one outside here, and the truck, and go get them both filled up. And we found out that if we make a big batch of what we call meat mix, hamburger, bacon, sausage, that we can get 7 quarts canned and still have enough left over for a trip. So that works pretty well. And we also need to start not recycling, but using first in, first out sort of stuff on the canned goods. And so we need to start eating some stuff too, just to keep things flowing through. The rock that we're going through there, I didn't take any time. Yeah, rotation. Thank you, David. Geezer, not working as well as he used to. I didn't have any real time to go through the rock there, but the zone that we're digging in, where the decline is pretty complicated. There's a lot of shearing and different mineralization there. We were kind of segregating stuff that we thought looked like ore. And there is some material there. Now, the interesting thing about this, and I don't have any with me right now, but it's a macrocrystalline quartz with some quartz crystals that look pretty much like quartz and others that are a brown, like they got a lot of iron oxide in them. It might have been resilicified from something else. I don't know. All I know is it is some tough stuff. I mean, this stuff is tougher than granite. Okay, it's some tough stuff. And the Hilti is having trouble when luckily it's only in, veins about like this. But I find it interesting that nobody, not Eva, not me, not the claim owner, seems to have seen any of that stuff before, which leads me to suspect that perhaps this was the really juicy stuff that never got away from them. Whenever they saw that, they're like, yeah. I don't know if that's the case. There was a sample on the way to Hiddle's lab for assay to let us know, and also an assay of the stuff that was visually more ore-like, and to get a good idea, what kind of grade are we talking about? Is this stuff we want to haul it all back? Or is this stuff that some of it can go to the, waste dump? Not so. We just don't know. But we should have some guidance on that. Not necessarily this trip, but the next trip. And the purpose of what I'm doing there, right at the opening, first of all, that was pretty narrow opening, as you noticed when I first got there. No, David, this is, we've never seen it. The only place we've seen this is where we dug it out of the bedrock. It wasn't brought in. It's the stuff I'm digging out. And it's like, wow, what's this stuff? And I say, none of us recall ever seeing anything that looked just like it. So it may be a high-grade ore, may just be a coincidence, or maybe just be a little pocket of it up at the top there. Don't know. But by starting with a 2-foot thickness and then going down at about a 5-degree steeper slope, I measured at the top there, it was 55 degrees according to the incredibly precise protractor level from Harbor Freight. And so I just increased that to 60 degrees. And I'm now taking the bottom of the decline at 60. And as you can see, that's going to wind up with an increasing wedge of material that we're mining out in the same zone that they originally put the decline. The assays, once you get about 15 feet down, look pretty good, at least in the stuff that's this wide in the middle and looks like ore. And so we're going to be doing a bit of assaying on the way down. We'll also be doing some what do you call it, hand panning and stuff too, to try and figure out, when we see this, what do we do with it? The hope is that as we go down, we'll be pulling 1 to 2 feet of ore grade material widthwise. And by the time we get to the 40-foot level, we should have about a 10-foot platform that we're working on. Steeper grade than the old decline. Number one, it's a lot easier and safer to work that way. Number two, it's just there. As we go down, we will consider the walls and whether or not we want to try and peel anything off the walls. There's some stuff at the 40-foot level looks pretty good to me. And a sample I took from there ran about an ounce to the ton. And a field viz spec for you, Keith. If it's running along strike, might as well make it a double shadow. No, it's running. This is dip. This is the perpendicular vein. It's a vertical vein or vertical mineralized zone that is perpendicular to the natural foliation of the rock. This is not the pack rat structure. This is the perpendicular vein. And we'll see kind of how it goes. But there doesn't seem to be any immediate indication that we can necessarily get a lot more by widening out, but there's no indication we can't either. One of the problems with having a limited budget is you can't do a lot of testing. I like drill holes in the rock all over the place and see what you get. So as we go, hello, blind dude. So as we go down, we'll kind of feel our way and check things as we go, and go from there. But I was relatively pleased with the progress. The rock itself seems to break reasonably easily. The material on the floor of the current decline is relatively soft and easy to break up. Of course, part of that is overbreak from the blasting. Whenever they blast, there's some fragmentation that occurs that isn't usually dug out. It's just not really intense fragmentation. Plus, that area there has had rain and freezing temperatures for decades. Not sure exactly how long. And so that'll help break it up also. This winter, I'll probably go over to Butte. We do have a name for this mine that's on the old USGS maps. So if I start digging through the records at the Bureau of Mines, I might be able to find something that gives us a better idea exactly what we've got here. And want to thank Chris again. Your idea of taking an IBC and putting it on an apex sounds pretty complicated, but what I did do is I took it and tilted it on its side a bit. It does make it a lot easier to clean the coarser material off the bottom. And I also was having problems. Several of my jets were plugged, so I'm trying a little bit of a different idea and see how that works out. But with any luck, the agitation tank will work at least as good in agitation and a lot easier in cleanup. So that was very helpful, Chris. Thank you, as usual. Yeah, you can 20-inch. That's a good size one. I'm not sure how fast I can run my solution. And this is one of the things. If I was running 1,000 pounds a day, I'd be generating about 10 gallons per hour of solution. Okay. That'd be 240 gallons per day, which is 1 ton, 2-to-1 ratio. And so the whole concept of speed, if I didn't have to worry about freezing and I didn't have to worry about power requirements, would not really be that important. As it is, I'm trying to run it a little bit faster than that right at the moment. For that test, I believe it's 16 gallons per hour, and see what kind of recoveries I get. If it's getting really good recovery, then I'll just go ahead and crank up the speed a bit until we can get into significant losses, then back it off. But that'll let us know where we're at. Hello, Lito. Hi, Blind Date. And so that's the basic criteria, is to figure out where you're getting good recovery into the resin and kind of push it at that. But I have zero feedback from the lab yet. Darn it, they didn't call me up this afternoon. So we shall see when that happens. In the meantime, still recycling solution, recovering gold from solution, and leaching more ore as I can, both to refine my techniques and to try and recover more gold into the resin, so that come this winter we got plenty of gold in resin to play with. Should have enough resin to hold 5 ounces or more of gold. Seems highly unlikely I'll process enough ore to dissolve 5 ounces of gold, so that the crushing, grinding, and leaching circuit criterion seems to be the limiting factor here. But anyhow, so that's what's going on there. And been having a good time. I enjoy, working hard like this. It's a little frustrating at times, but oh well. I'm itching to get back out there and keep digging on that decline. I love that. And so that's what I've been doing this week. And that slacker Jim has not shown up. He has not answered his telephone. This leads me to believe that he has not acquired his elk yet. That is just a guess. That is only a guess. That's okay. We'll worry about that for Eva. Let's see. Hey, Smoking. Oh, nice, Blind. So anyhow, I'm not sure what Jim's doing right now. I know he was going elk hunting this weekend. It's the beginning of season, started Saturday. If he's not, it was a miserable day today if you were out there trying to be working, like staking claims or something like that. I do not expect that they were out there doing mining stuff today. The only reason I would expect him to be incommunicado right now is he's trying to perforate some large herbivore. So we shall see. I believe that's ground penetrating radar, Smoking. Hello, Terry. Ha! See? I was right. So that's basically an update of what's been going on right here at Hard Rock U. And Eva is doing well. She's recovering fine. And yeah, I'm thinking, Jeff, that might be true. Carrying out 1,000-pound elk is a bit of a work. So anyhow, that's about it. And guess I got another full day tomorrow. Let's see. Get propane. Weld the winch base onto the head frame. Go to the doctor's appointment. Do some other stuff that we do every week. And then get out to the ranch and try and grind up another 500 pounds, which theoretically takes about 4 hours. So looking at the schedule here, that'll be about dark. Hello, Ray. So that's basically it. Again, get out there theoretically Friday. The problem is I can only do so much till I get that head frame set up. And so I got to get the timber set cleaned up first. Get that whole area there cleaned up. And Eva's not really capable of hoisting buckets by hand out of the shaft there. Must-have book about rocks and minerals. Not really. I don't recall any that really specialized in orogenesis, the making of ore bodies or deposition of gold in bedrock.
What's his name from
We got
California Mining Journal write a very good book on the issue?
I know that Chris Ralph wrote a book on gold mining, and I know from a if you're looking for placer, where the heck was that one? The one that McCulloch wrote. I don't know where it is. It was here we go. Now, again, this is not my specialty. Oh. Hey, Smiling Bear. I was wondering, how did you know Chris Georgie thought it was a great setup? You look a little bit like Chris Georgie, your picture does. And I thought, is that Chris? And Eva's going like, no, that's not Chris, I don't think. And so, as I was just wondering, that comment sounded like something Chris might have said, in third person. Hi, Smiling. Anyhow, so Ray, here's a book that you can.
Yeah, Chris Ralph wrote a bestseller on the issue.
This is, like, this was written by Robin McCulloch at Montana Bureau of Mines. Applied gold placer exploration and evaluation techniques. Now, I don't have the expertise to critique the book, but it's detailed and it has a lot of more technical information.
Jim highly recommended it.
Jim says it's like your Bible for placer deposit, primarily not currently flowing stream bed placers, but bank placers and things like that. He highly recommended it. It's from Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology, special publication 115. And you can get that from Montana Tech. It's $25.
And then you get Chris Ralph's book on Amazon.
Yep. So anyhow, that is a good book on placer, according to Jim, and he's vastly more experienced than I am. He said it's extremely valuable if you're trying to deal with placer deposits. Huh. That's where I put them. Okay. So anyhow, oh dearie. Those are there. This goes here. It is a little annoying working in a studio because you just don't have enough room to do things. But
Wine.
oh well, we got plenty of cheese. Yeah, you're welcome, Ray. I say for placer mining, that's very, very good. Hard rock mining, not so sure. I mean, I'm there's probably some really good books out there. I've done it kind of the hard way, and I'm not the best in the planet either. You know, don't mistake experience for expertise. Okay, schist is a metamorphic rock. And if I'm not mistaken, it's intermediate between gneiss and the more lightly metamorphosed ones like the phyllites and shales. It's an intermediate metamorphic rock, and it tends to be kind of flaky. You know, it's foliated. It's in little sheets, usually kind of poorly held together. Gneiss, on the other hand, is usually a pretty good solid rock. And really, Robin's got a hard rock book too? Cool. He was working for those guys for a long time. And I'll have to look for that one. Do you know if it's at Montana Tech? But I say schist is just an intermediate metamorphosed rock. And I think it goes shale, phyllite, schist, gneiss. You know. Yep, he is. And nice guy too. He's very personable, easy to talk to. And so yeah, he's a really nice guy. Jeff, have you talked to him personally yourself? Because you've got stuff up here you very well might have. But anyhow, phaneritic mineral grains. Well, that's as clear as mud. Okay. Dan Hassel is also being recommended. Yeah, Jeff, he's a nice guy. Really like him. Yeah, exactly. Let us know, blind date. I've heard it before, but I don't know. I can't recall what it means. Blind dude, sorry. And another thing I'm going to be doing this winter is repair and maintenance. Need a cataract fixed. I've got a hernia that needs fixing. And so I'm going to, get stuff like that fixed in the off season, do research, figure out how to get the gold out of the resin, and plain okay, flat sheets basically. And so that'll take up some time, but we'd like to get a good stockpile of ore in beforehand so that come spring, once it warms up enough where we can use the mill, but before we can get back to the mine, we can get back into business and keep doing some stuff. A mass shooting in Boise?
2 killed and 4 wounded, including a local cop.
Okay. Apparently there was a mass shooting in Boise, 2 killed, 4 wounded, including a cop. So, watch out. Magnets and prospector trip. Oh, really? That would be cool. Is that on YouTube, Jeff? He says there's a video of him on Montana and all ore deposits. Okay. So this is the sort of stuff I can do in the winter. Is do the research and things like that. And right now I'm just trying to. Oh, I also got to replace some spring bushings on the truck too. That should be done. I'll try and get that done this week if possible. I should have the bushings in hand. I've got some shackle sets. I'll see if I can round up some friends and jack her up and punch them out and put the new ones back in there. Shouldn't take too long. The lower spring bushings only took less than an hour to get both of those in there. I'd say half of that was getting the tools out and putting them back up too. Oh, thank you, Tricky. Rock crusher tutorial. Well, it depends on what kind of rock crusher. Now, there's a difference between a crusher and a mill, and it's basically the fine grind. The best rock crusher for small scale that I'm aware of by far is the jaw crusher. Although the Olesi from Australia is supposed to be pretty good, but they ain't cheap. You can get some relatively inexpensive jaw crushers from Pandaland for a couple $1,000. I think Prospector Trips got a couple of videos on one he got there. I've got an RC46 from Keen, which has a 4x6 jaw crusher on it. That's pretty good, but it's also got rolls, and it's about $10,000 total nowadays. That's not cheap, although the RC46 takes you down to a sand, whereas just a regular crusher wouldn't. The least expensive, what is geologist's full name? Robin McCulloch. I don't know if we can get this. There we go, right there. Robin McCulloch. He really seems to know his stuff. He's a nice guy, etc. Anyhow, so the best way to pulverize the rock cheaply is an inexpensive chain mill. There's a number out there for less than $2,000. My mill, well, the one I built for Jimmy cost me, I believe it was about $1,800 in parts. And I sell the plans for $100, but it's not nearly as portable as a small chain mill. It is designed as a small production mill. And the one I'm using right now is a 6-inch, and it's running about 125 pounds an hour, pulverized, fine enough to do tank leaching. So those are the various options. Yeah, Chris, says, take a lawnmower and use the blade on that to beat stuff up. It will last for a while, not long. But yeah.
By the way, Bear.
What?
Just to show you the picture, the green dots are cargo ships. That's part of the world. There are 17,000 cargo ships in the world.
Yeah, but they're covering the whole oceans.
Yeah.
I have not used one of those smoking. Are you talking the one that's got a lever on it, or the one that's actually, or is there one that's got a motor on it? I think I saw a video once. I agree, blind dude. getting the shirt. Literally ordered one today. Oh, and that's a good question. Are you still here, Chris? Yeah, it looks like. We tried to order your shirt to send it directly to you, but apparently that website doesn't have very sophisticated
Anything.
So my question is, do you want to see it first, or just send it to you? Because as I say, Eva's, we got some other stuff here too, but we could show it to you on Hard Rock U, or on the live stream or whatever. But we're gonna have to get it here first before we send it off to you. Yeah, I like. Isn't it McCoy, Mako with a little I, or is it Chief Mako I? I'm not sure how he pronounces it. How's it work, Gold Panner? That's the one that's got a lever action to it, right? Okay, Chris. Yeah, Jeff. But that can work out okay. Okay, he says it works good. Okay. Gold Panner says that Crazy Crusher did actually work. Oh, I think we've got a message from, yes, we have communications. He's still in the mountains. It's snowing.
No elk yet?
Doesn't say why he's in the mountains, but I presume that's it. So anyhow, he's still yonder. Yeah, that's nice feedback, Gold Panner. Thank you. Yeah, I like him too, Chris. He's pretty informative. No, the lubrication system doesn't work upside down, blind dude. You'd have to cut a hole in the deck or something like that.
Wow, there's a lot of oil tankers backed up.
No, Chris. He's out in the mountains, still snowing. If he needed help, he'd have said something, I'm sure. Let me see if I'll say got elk. Yeah, if he needed help, he would have said more than just he was in the mountains and it was snowing. No, Chris, that would be dispose of some elk, right? Yeah, smoking. I'm not as big a fan of big game hunting as I used to, just because it's a lot of work. Once you shot it, it's like, darn, now I got a job to do. Especially,
I'm a fan.
This terrain around here, unless you're really lucky, you're going to have to carry some meat over some ground. Where my brother and I used to hunt in northern Arizona, we could usually drive the pickup truck pretty close to where we dropped that rascal. And my brother's he's got much more finesse with a knife. So, once we got it gutted and he got 1/4 skin, then he'd cut that quarter off and hand it to me, and I'd be boning that out while he's skinning more. And after a little over an hour, we'd have a 600-pound cow elk reduced to nothing but boned meat and the head, which is required. You got to take it with you just to prove what it was, whether it had antlers or not. And so that was a lot easier. Here it looks challenging at times getting the damn elk out.
Which is why you're going to do it next year.
Yeah, I've seen some of the place around your place, Chris. Yeah, shoot it across the draw. Mm-hmm. Got a chopper handy? That'd come in. Yeah. Let's see, how much would it take to lift 1,000-pound elk? I think a Huey would just barely do it. Yeah, sounds about right, smoking. Yeah, gold. I mean, a blind dude. I keep saying when I say date. Um, the when stuff's been burned over, you can see a lot more. And when you have like this rain event you guys are having is going to return all the gravels and stuff in the river and redeposit gold, move it around. And unless I'm mistaken, this is one of those events that really does get that water moving, which will refill the old holes. There's people who just really wait, about once a decade. It's like, okay, now I can go back to XYZ hole and dredge it again. So say California's getting whacked right now, but then that's about right.
It's called a climate bomb.
What did Juan Brown call it? There's 4 seasons in California. I remember 3 of them: fire season, flood season, riot season, and I forgot what the 4th one was, but I thought it was pretty hilarious. Anyhow, so well, that'll help. But 12 inches of rain is a lot to soak in, Chris. So it'll help, but I don't think it'll stop it. And with all the forest fires, you've got all that land that's doesn't have any cover to hold it either. So you're going to tend to have mudslides, much higher sedimentation ratios than usual for the same amount of water. Earthquake season. Okay, that sounds about right. And so yeah, this can make for some interesting stuff over there in California. It's pretty country. When my brother and I were hauling salmon up and down the west coast from the mouth of the Klamath River, yeah, that Northern California and Oregon coast, that's some pretty stuff, man. I'll tell you, it sure is. Oh, so Chris says Highway 70 has a slide across it. Okay, if it is claimed, blind dude, then you can't go panning or anything without the permission of the claim owner. That would be considered theft. If it is unclaimed but open to mineral exploration, then a modest amount of sampling is perfectly acceptable. You're not going to be able to do a significant disturbance without filing a claim and then getting a permit. But when you're looking at My Land Matters, if it says there's an active claim there, then somebody owns the mineral rights, literally. And doing anything without their permission is considered illegal. Now, most guys, if you're just out there with a pan looking at stuff, they usually won't get too upset, but that's their call and that of the sheriff as to whether or not they want to make an issue of it. Load claim technically doesn't have the placer rights, although it does have surface rights. It's kind of a weird law. The whole mining law gets a little complicated, but you can use that as a good idea to see where, if there's claims in an area and then there's an area that's not claimed, that would be a good place to prospect quite often. But yeah, and you can look up the owners of claims if there's some reason that you really want to do something in a claim. Now, you do have the right to cross the claim. You can walk across it unless it's fenced and posted. They can't keep you from just walking across it or even putting a stake on the ground. You know, you may have to get, then it winds up, if you overstake theirs, then it becomes a litigation issue. Yep. You're not likely to get shot unless you're doing something pretty dramatic. Although if you do, people get a little annoyed on that. But yeah, if it's an active claim, then you don't want to do anything there except cross it without the claim owner's permission. Yep. And since you're that new at the game, yeah, and it varies by state law too. Chris was saying there, you know, it's grand theft. Of course, if you take $900 from a store, it's no big deal. I don't know, Chris. Are they really? If a guy was just out there, you know, like, you know, blind dude here, just out doing a little panning and this and that and the other, would a sheriff even enforce that? I mean, certainly the claim owner come up and say, "What are you doing? Get off my claim," and you better get off your claim. But I don't know if a sheriff would really want to enforce that. Yep. No, it's never a good idea to claim jump. In California, you also have, well, you used to have, I don't know, it's still an issue with the marijuana growers, Chris. There's some areas you don't really want to go because the marijuana growers get very persnickety. Yeah, but were those people who were just casual little prospectors out there? Were those people who were actually, you know, trying to claim jump? That's my question, Chris. Let's say I don't recall hearing a case where just some Joe Schmuck is out there with a 10-inch pan and doing a little stuff, and somebody comes up and arrest that man, you know. And I say, I'm just wondering from a practical standpoint, because certainly from a legal standpoint, yes, it's theft. But I say, like, you know, you walk into a Walgreens in San Francisco, legally it's theft. Are you going to get prosecuted? Don't know. I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, that's a good thing. Another thing, blind dude, one thing that I would really recommend for you, because of your lack of experience, look around and find a gold prospecting club locally. And that way you can meet a lot of people, get a lot of information, get access to some claims where there actually is some gold, get tips on panning and all that other stuff. And it can be very educational in the beginning. You get a lot of information that way. So I always like to recommend, see if you can find a local prospecting club. Go to one of their meetings if you like the people, and say you'll gain a lot of information. And one of the problems with learning to do something is you have to do it. Well, if you're going to pan for gold, it's kind of helpful to have an area that actually has gold in it. And if you're panning material that doesn't have any gold, how do you know if you're doing it right or not? How does a blind dude find gold? With great difficulty and lots of perseverance. But that, you know, that can be very, very helpful, is to, you know, to get started. You'll learn a lot real fast. In terms of equipment, you're going to need a gold pan. I prefer a hammer and chisel to a rock hammer. There's technical reasons for that, because I do hard rock. And to break hard rock, you get a lot more impact with a lot more control and a lot fewer flying chips if you take a chisel, hold it against the rock, and whack it with a 2-pound hammer. If you want to go metal detector, okay. if you got a metal detector, check out how well the metal detector works where in a controlled situation. Take metal pieces, iron, like some steel, some lead, things like that, and see how easy it is to find it, what the detection limit is on your detector, things like that. It's a lot easier to learn when you know what you're looking at than when you have no idea. Another problem when you're out there with a metal detector in the field is you tend to find a whole lot more trash than you do things of interest. Although if you like picking up old shell casings, bullets, and things like that, not a problem. I personally don't like a lot of, picking up a lot of trash. That's not my gig. Yeah, bullets and casings. But yeah, you're going to find a lot of trash. And if you can find an area that doesn't have a lot of trash but does have gold, that'll be a lot more productive. Yeah, David, exactly. Bury different things at different depths to find out what your detector can do, what it sounds like, the whole 9 yards. Again, if you're searching for a known target, then it makes it a lot more educational than, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? It's like, oh, that's what that means. And Jeff, which one would you generally recommend, since you have a selection of there, to go after gold in unmineralized versus gold in mineralized situations? Because that's quite a selection there. Yeah. Say, I have seen some guys good with metal. I've been out with iBreak for bedrock a couple of times. Those guys are pretty good, and I've seen them find some pretty small stuff. No, never seen that one smoking. Sidewalk cracks? What does he usually find? Yeah, the Falcon has its little box and a little probe about that long, and a cable, yep. And picks up real small gold, but only at short distances. It's historical artifacts, Terry. As somebody once said, at a mine I was working at, what's a historical artifact? It's junk over 50 years old. Yeah, it's kind of nebulous. But say, I was out on Chris's claim one time, and I was trying my brother's detector, and yeah, it was frustrating. Bullets and casings and stuff. That's pretty good smoking. He goes in front of jewelry stores and pawn shops and detects the sidewalk cracks. It's not a bad idea. Is a pinpointer good for cracks? A pinpointer is good for getting close to a target that the main detector has picked up. The pinpointer, the name, it has a small detection field, and it's not very deep. And so your big detector picks up the target, and then you pinpoint it with a pinpoint. And if it's buried very deep, you're not going to find it with the pinpointer until you dig deeper. Yep. Yeah, Jeff. I've got my brother's MineLab 4000 GPX with me. It's a pain in the butt. It's a complex machine. I think it's designed to do a difficult task, and therefore it has to be complicated. But yeah, that's no learner's machine. I'd go with Jeff's. The other one is that MindLab Gold Monster seems to be pretty popular too. I've seen the Gold Monster and the Gold Bug 2 used by iBreak for Bedrock, and I've seen them both pick up some pretty small pieces. Yep. The big detector can pick up gold at a greater distance. I say because, the pinpointer only can look like, an inch or two, depending on the size of the target. And whereas the big detector can look sometimes over a foot, depending on the size of the target. And the smaller the gold particles, the harder it is to see. I read an article one time, and this was done a while back, so I'm not sure if it's still now, but you detectorists out there can tell me. When the metal is finely divided, it doesn't give near the signal of the same amount of metal in a single piece. So if you had like 1/10 of a gram of gold in fine gold, but in one spot, it's not going to give you near the signal of 1/10 of a gram nugget. Came up with a new version of the Gold Bug too, huh? Yeah, I'm not sure of the plus and minuses of VLF versus pulse induction. What are the strengths and weaknesses? I know that iBreak for Bedrock did a video on the difference. They did kind of a side-by-side comparison of the Gold Monster and the Gold Bug 2. And I didn't see a great deal of difference between the two. Do the detectors go just as deep into rock as normal dirt? That would depend on the other mineralization in the rock. If it was highly mineralized rock, like at Montana B, it's running some of the stuff's 30% iron, and that's going to screen the signal out a bit. So if you had soil that had a lot of iron in it, like black sand, versus rock that was just basically quartz with very other little mineralization, you probably see deeper into the quartz than you would the soil. It's the other minerals that mess up the signal to noise ratio, basically. Yeah. And say that stuff out at Montana B, again, some of the stuff it's going to be complicated. You'll see videos on it, but we've got some black rock that feels like black rock, and you've got some black rocks like, damn, that's heavy. Doesn't look any different. So we've got quite a bit of rock that we're kind of hand sorting, and we're going to sort according to rock types. And one thing Eva found out last summer was some of the rock looks non-porous, but you dip it in the water to wash it off and look at it, and it'll just suck the water right in. And it doesn't look porous at all. I think Smoking Joking has another point too. With your detector, simplicity and lightness has a value in and of itself. That MindLab, I mean, it's got a backpack. Yeah, Jeff, that stuff looked pretty mineralized, but say some of this rock we've got is gray, real dark gray to black, when you break it, sometimes you'll get a gray fracture surface like you would if you like broke cast iron, you know? So that's one of the things that's, you know, soon on the priority list, but after we get snowed in, is to go out there and sort through those rocks and crush them up and split it down to a sample and sample, you know, and find out, okay, exactly what is ore, what does it look like? One of the very frustrating things with hard rock is, especially with something like Montana B, it's complicated. You know, the darn stuff, you got all kinds of different rock types, and they're mining at least two major types of rock types. There's this black, dark gray, pretty solidified and porous looking rock that's still fairly dense. And there's the what they like to call fluffy rock, which is porous and not dense, and a lot of that is limonite. You know, it's not the bright silvery color of arsenopyrite, Chris. It's a dark gray. You know, and so there's a lot of knowledge to gain on this particular project. Yeah, it would make sense, Chris. The arsenic part of the arsenopyrite can, you know, leach away over time, leaving the iron oxide. But I said there'll be some videos where I go over this stuff where we, you know, because we want to know when we're digging what stuff goes where, what do we put in the dump, and what do we take home. And unfortunately, it's not a simple question to answer. Little one, can you come over here and cover for a minute?
Sure.
The mine dumps generally will never have been treated with mercury or cyanide. And I'll get back to that question in just a minute. Bright orange, it doesn't quite like. There's some reds, look almost like cinnabar.
Howdy, howdy. Yeah, Chris, we don't have any, I wouldn't call it bright orange. I have seen some of the sponge rock that I have seen, the stuff that soaks up water, is nearly blue-black. It's a beautiful color. But I have also seen some porous rock. Hi, Mr. Lodak. I have also seen some porous rock that is a really bright burnt sienna. It's not a vibrant orange like a mandarin orange, but it's a really bright burnt sienna. It's a lighter shade of orange than, yeah, smoking. I'm feeling pretty darn good at the moment. It's a lighter, brighter shade of orange than some of the other iron ore. It's also lighter in terms of weight for pieces. So, but Bear, we'll get back to things.
Okay, get back to Blind Dude. One of the things that newbies tend to get confused by is some technical terms. So I'll get you kind of up to speed real quick here. People talk about tailings dumps, when quite often they mean what's known as a waste dump. If you have a mine, it's going to have different rocks that they're moving. Some of it has ore. And here's another thing, blind dude. Ore is rock from which you can extract a valuable mineral at a profit. If it can't be profitable, it's not ore. Okay? It's just mineralized rock. And you'll quite often find small, high-grade ore stockpiles where they weren't processing the material at that mine, but they were hauling it off somewhere else for processing. So you may see these little ore-grade ore stockpiles. Now, in the, I see that, Chris. We'll check it. The next thing is the rock that you have to move to get to the ore, but which cannot be processed at a profit, is called waste. And that is typically just thrown away. When you see a tunnel in the side of a hill and you see a bunch of rock thrown out in front of it into a dump there, that's typically waste, not tailings. Tailings is produced by a mill. When you send your ore to a processing facility and they crush it up into a sand-like material and extract the valuable mineral out of it and throw away the sand, those are tailings. Very often people will call a waste dump, it's a tailings dump. It's not tailings. And the reason if a waste dump hasn't been treated with cyanide or mercury, it hasn't been crushed. In order to get the gold out of the rock, you have to either liberate it or at least get the rock broken down to where the chemicals can get to the gold, and that requires fairly fine crushing. And you would see a sand-like material. And there's often, in a situation like this, there'll be tanks, there'll be other structures there which housed all the equipment that used to take the rock, crush it, pulverize it, extract the material, etc., and then dispose of it. Let's see. Let me see, Chris. I'm going to try something. I'm just going to click on it and see if it takes me to the link. It did. Well, that's crystalline realgar there. I wouldn't say it's quite that orange, but it's not it's not that nice, clean gem quality crystal form either. And orpiment, more like the orpiment color, but again, it's not so much crystalline. It looks to me more like a limonite. There's some stuff that, it could be it's kind of the color of the realgar, but also cinnabar or ochre. Considering it's really high iron, I'm thinking maybe ochre, but I do not know. And so that's one of those deals where we'll see what we can find out this winter. The yellowish stuff at the dumps, quite often, and I can't tell without even having a look at it. There's something called limonite, or actually, in most cases, goethite. But when the iron sulfide that was deposited with other minerals oxidizes, it turns into this iron oxide, iron sulfate material that's kind of a rusty, orangish, yellow, red, and it's dirty, and it's fairly soft and porous and stuff. And that may be what you're on. That's very common. Now, if you have something that's bright yellow, then that's something different. And I presume you can click on these links. Ooh, that's a pretty one there, Chris. I don't think, little one, you've never seen anything like this, have you? See, those are both.
No, if I had seen something like that, I would have kept it.
Yeah, that's arsenic, by the way.
That is beautiful. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure handling it won't make you sick.
It will if you handle enough of it. So, as what's commonly called limonite, more properly called goethite, or gaetite, GOETHITET, is basically the mineral that forms after oxidation of iron sulfide. What's arsenic? Arsenic is a toxic element, and
Poison.
it's quite often found in association with gold. There's a mineral called arsenopyrite, which is arsenic iron sulfide, and it can often have very high gold content.
Quite often, arsenic was deliberately ingested by medieval ladies, like in Italy and such, in very small amounts, because it will give you white streaks in your hair and give you white fingernails that look like a French manicure.
Hey, Adam, how's it going?
Just so all y'all know.
And say that's arsenic. It is toxic. It's cumulatively toxic. Okay. So if you're continually working around the stuff and getting it in your body, it will tend to build up over time.
P.S. Do not eat apple seeds or peach pits.
They have cyanide. But anyhow, as a general rule, blind dude, all those really cool looking minerals are toxic to a certain extent or another.
Bismuth.
Yep.
Bismuth is beautiful.
Oh my goodness. A reading on racism, huh? Oh, are you racist? Yeah. Did you check your email? I haven't yet. Let me see if I can see this. He sent me something here. And where am I going here? I'm confused. Nothing new about that. Let's see. There you are, Richard. I have 7 pictures. No text as far as I can see. Yes, those are all pictures there. And oh, copper pyrite. Yeah, that's some nice chalcopyrite there. And basically, blind dude, most of the minerals of economic value that have metals in them are sulfides. And pyrites, if it says pyrite, it basically means sulfide. Although there's other things that are sulfides that are not called pyrite. For example, galena is lead sulfide and stuff like that. And those sort of things, stupid computer. Let's see. How did it come up? Do you mean how did the arsenic show up? It's dissolved in the hydrothermal solutions that deposited everything else. Most of these minerals are deposited as they precipitate out of very hot water under pressure. And depending upon what it's carrying and what the conditions are, different things will precipitate. Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny, you know, they always looking to blame someone for not thinking the way they do. and it's pretty silly at times. Yeah, it's anyone accuse me of racist, I'll just like, well, look at my son-in-law. Let's see. Is there anything that's called pyrite that doesn't have iron in it? You may be right, Chris. Yeah, because like chalcopyrite is copper iron sulfide.
No, by definition, a pyrite has to have iron in it.
Okay.
That's pretty much what a pyrite is, I think.
Chalcocite, it doesn't say pyrite. Yep. Ron told me the first year class, find the iron and in the sulfide forms, look for the minerals. As a general rule, from the hot geothermal solutions, three things that generally precipitate at the same temperature are silica, iron pyrite, and gold. That's why you often find gold in iron-stained quartz veins. You also look, iron is Fe, P is phosphorus. You're looking for those iron oxides because near the surface they will have oxidized out, but you're also looking for little cubes or holes in the rock that are, the holes are cubes. Those are called, the cubes of iron oxide are called pseudomorphs, and the holes are called vugs. Now, a lot of people make the mistake again. New guys, you'll hear people say, it's buggy quartz with a B. It's not. It's vuggy quartz with a V. The holes are called vugs, V-U-G, and therefore it's vuggy quartz. People often call it buggy quartz because, you know, it sounds very similar. So let's see. Yep. So it says these various sulfide minerals are, and their breakdown products are what you're looking for to find metallic mineralization. And iron pyrite, while it, Adam's talking about fool's gold, it's often called fool's gold, although quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't look very much like gold. Now, chalcopyrite, it's a bright buttery yellow, but you know, iron pyrite or just regular pyrite, nah, it's a gray color. It doesn't look like gold. Blind dude, I don't believe it comes in cubes. I think it's tetrahedrons. It can come in crystalline forms, but if it's in cubes, it's probably a chalcopyrite, which is an iron copper sulfide. And if you take that and rub it against a piece of unglazed porcelain, I believe it'll leave a green or a blue streak. The other thing is if it's big enough to see it's an actual cube, if you apply mechanical pressure, like with pliers or a hammer, the difference between chalcopyrite and gold becomes immediately apparent, as the chalcopyrite is very brittle. It behaves a lot like glass, although it doesn't leave as sharp edges. And Chris says, yes, gold can come in cubic crystals. Okay. But the gold will bend like a hard lead would. It's not going to bend as easy as lead. No, a good example, let me show you here. The poor man's street plate. I actually had a PhD use this one time for something. Oh. Yeah. No, we don't have any handy. There's some unglazed porcelain. Unfortunately, it's red. But on the bottom of a coffee cup or a bowl or things like it, quite often they don't glaze this little ridge so it doesn't slide all over the place. And that is where you can, as I was once having a geologist look at some stuff, and he's like, he grabs a cup and turns it over. Sometimes the carbon precipitates the gold. Other times it's temperature precipitates the gold as the sulfides, as the solution cools. It can also be a chemical change. That's why you often find where the solutions come into contact with limestone. If they have gold, you can get some real good precipitation there. That's a good question too on these plates that Chris sent me. Yeah, these are unglazed on the back. Now Chris and I are kind of working together on a just where these little wells. See if you can see them in there. There you go. Those little wells will be where you try and do something chemically and see the result. But on the back, this is just plain white. And let's see. I know I've got some stuff here. A lot of iron. And there's come on, there's the streak. Chocolate brown. And that's pretty consistent in terms of what you would expect. I forget what this is. This is bismuth, I think. It doesn't leave a streak at all. What do we got in our little pile of stuff here? And see how it looks almost the same color, different rock? Iron oxide. Garnet, that's not going to leave a streak. Very light gray. That's heavy. It's heavy and crystalline. That's some pretty big crystals in it. I think maybe this has got garnets in it. But anyhow, that's a streak plate. And for example, if you have chalcopyrite, which is yellow, and you rub it against that plate, you're not going to have a yellow streak. If you had actual gold and rubbed it against there, you'd have these shiny little gold particles there. And if you have many gold-looking squarish stuff, yeah, try that out. The other thing is, say, just try and crush it and see what happens. If it pulverizes, yeah, that's not gold. If it squishes, it's gold. And these sort of things, it shatters, chalcopyrite. Yeah, if it was gold, it would not shatter. It'd be like a lead BB, It's pretty stuff. But that is, in my opinion, the most common mineral that you can really mistake for gold because it looks buttery yellow and it's shiny and it's pretty. The other thing is, look at how it breaks. The kind of fracture you get when you break glass, that kind of curved thing is called conchoidal fracture. If you break a pyrite, you're going to tend to get conchoidal fracture too. But yeah, it's interesting. And Chris is correct. the chalcopyrite can be deposited with gold. Absolutely. All of these minerals can be associated with gold. Most of those copper mines, not sure exactly where in New Mexico you are, but there's a copper mine down there by Silver City. It's a pretty big one. And the gold and silver that they recover is usually, as much as the copper. It's everywhere. Well, a large copper deposit is worth a heck of a lot of money. Is it claimed? Is it claimable? Is that land open to claiming? And if it's near Silver City, it's probably been heavily explored. But I've been there. But a good, like Miner Jim here for the last month or two, they've been out in the field doing claim staking and stuff, because he's found a good, they call it a polymetallic deposit, many minerals. It's got copper, it's got zinc, it's got this and that and the other. Have I ever encountered bornite? Not in the field. I've seen it in museums. It's a very pretty stuff. Yep, very, very pretty. But I think Jim may have some on his claims, but I personally haven't run into it in its native environment. And by the way, blind dude, you're going to see something here pretty soon. We call it the tinfoil hat report. And that's where my wife will give us information on regulations, markets, things like that, or whatever. And it's just about time for her to come on. So I'm just letting you know it's something we have fun with over here. We like to have fun. We like to josh each other a bit and everything. And we also like new people like yourself, or people with questions, because it tends to drive the conversation, leads into interesting directions. That guy that you saw, Tricky Dicky, he's from the Philippines. I mean, he's in the Philippines right now. Several of these guys are probably from Canada, and I don't recognize anything from Australia here, but there probably will be by the time it's over. We have some people from Australia and everything. And as David says, we try to help. And as you noticed, different people have different amounts of knowledge. Now, Chris he's got a real broad knowledge of a lot of things.
Chris is our rocket surgeon.
I am a miner. I know a bit of geology and a bit of mineralogy and a bit of all kinds of other stuff too. And it's Patrick. He's from Australia. So I say it's fun. I haven't seen Mohammed from Algeria yet today. But it's fun. This is actually international. And everyone tries to help everybody out. And a good question is great because everyone can jump on it. So don't be afraid. I'm
going to go to the bathroom and then I shall arrive.
So anyhow,
the tinfoil hat will be in the house.
That's what we like to do around here. Help each other out, network. It stimulates everybody's brain. Silver City's got a lot of mineralization over there. You're in that area between, Morenci, Silver City. By the way, I hear the Safford mine, just north of Safford in the mountains there, is going to be bigger than Morenci. And if you know what Morenci looks like, and it's not even close to as big. The pit at Morenci is currently scheduled to be 6 miles across, but the one at Safford is going to be bigger, and they're still drilling. They're still stepping out.
Area also is a location for optical grade blue fluorite.
Yeah. So there's lots of mineralization in your area. There's gold, there's copper, and
fluorite.
There's fluorite there. Generally, wherever you see mineralization in large quantity, there's lots of little stuff too, because it's the geothermal activity, the volcanic magma that creates the heat and the circulating fluids. And as the magma cools, it also, at the last little bit, the magmatic fluids contain a lot of minerals and such. So that's what causes it. And see, blind dude, here is the lovely Eva, or as we call her affectionately here, the tinfoil hat goddess.
Howdy, howdy. The tinfoil hat goddess is in the house. I'm still trying to figure out why I'm a liberal.
Liberal?
Yeah.
Who
Remember last week?
Oh, yeah, there was somebody on here.
Argonaut.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with some mining news. There's been some mining news this week, though there isn't a terrible amount of mining news this week. But Pretium Resources makes new discovery around Brucejack. Pretium Resources has made a new high-grade gold exploration discovery at the Golden Marmot Zone on its Brucejack property in British Columbia, Canada. Located approximately 3.5 kilometers north of its Valley of the Kings deposit. The company said it had received assays for the first 9 drill holes, 8 of which intersected gold with a highlight of 53.5 meters, grading 72.5 grams per ton gold, including 50 centimeter grading 6,700 grams per ton gold and 3,930 grams per ton silver. Very interesting out of 9 drill holes so far, so this could get exciting over time. Initial results from the Golden Marmot are exciting and affirm the district-scale potential of the Brucejack property, President and CEO Jacques Perron said in the statement. Shares jumped on the news and were trading 6.9% higher in Toronto at 12.07 Canadian by midday. Yeah, wow, blind dude. That's what I said. That one hole with that high grade. Yeah, Chris, that's what I'm thinking. What about the other holes? They've done 9, so, I'd like to see the report on the spacing on those holes and how many more holes they intend here. That leaves the miner with a market capitalization of $2.81 billion Canadian. The gold mineralization covers a zone that is about 150 meters in width, 250 meters in length, and 275 meters in depth, and occurs in the same host rocks with the same alteration signature as the Valley of the Kings deposit. That's a good sign. Wouldn't you say that's a good sign, Bear?
Yeah.
Nice homogeneous mineralization that's easily identifiable here. That sounds like a good sign. This, according to Pretium, is an indication it could be a new high-grade deposit. Golden Marmot's proximity and existing trail access would make it relatively easy to integrate into future mine plans as an independent source of ore to supply the Brucejack mill. Golden Marmot is only the first of several zones drill tested this year, with results still to come from Gossan Hill, Bridge Zone, and Hanging Glacier, Perron said. All these targets have the potential to deliver game-changing results and are within 4 kilometers of the Brucejack mine infrastructure. Pretium began in June replacing its diesel trucks with a fleet of 7, with the option of an 8 battery electric vehicles at Brucejack. Green stuff.
Are those underground or surface?
We're getting to that. Sandvik started the distribution of its Sandvik Z50 battery electric haul trucks in July, with the final delivery for the entire fleet expected in early 2023.
Probably underground.
The company said it remains on track to produce 325,000 ounces to 365,000 ounces of gold at an all-sustaining cost between $1,060 per ounce and $11.90 per ounce in 2021. Wow, Bear, is that a high cost per ounce?
How much?
It says 1,060 and 1,190 an ounce is the range they're looking at.
The actual cost to produce? Yeah, that's
Well,
a
it
high
says
cost.
an all-in sustaining cost.
Yeah, that's pretty high.
Yeah, that sounded high to me too. But still, good for them. If some more holes prove out at those numbers, they're going to be rolling in it, people.
Well, the other thing is too, they're going to generally take ore as low grade as they can make money.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the cost per ounce on their high grade.
Yeah.
That's the cost per ounce on their average.
And in other green
Hey,
news.
Jason.
Hi. In other green news, Caterpillar gears up for green energy transition and automation age. And Caterpillar's in some hot water here, but we'll talk about that in the next thing. Mine Expo 2021 in Las Vegas was 5 years in the making, and like other industry gatherings taking place at the beginning of the end of a pandemic, it was a rather subdued affair. Even more so considering mining is on the cusp of a new era, not just in terms of booming demand for metals, but also the transformation of happening at the coal face, or rather under the copper block cave on the spodumene bench and in the nickel stope. Technical mining terms. No gathering of this size is complete without buzzwords, and anyone playing a drinking game where players had to take a shot anytime the word sustainability was uttered in the exhibition halls and meeting rooms would have left Mine Expo with a massive hangover, even by Las Vegas standards. Wow, I'm glad I missed that one. At Mine Expo 21, Mining.com sat down with Janice Johnson, Group President for Resources Industries at Caterpillar, the world's #1 manufacturer of construction and mining equipment, to talk about future trends shaping the mining industry. Stuff for us little guys to look at and say, wow, we wish we had the money to do that. Caterpillar's reach is as broad as global mining, and apart from 100,000 employees, the Deerfield, Illinois-based company's vast dealership network has another 160,000 workers. The last time Mine Expo took over the Vegas Convention Center was in 2016 when the industry was amid a brutal downturn. How brutal? Copper bottomed below $2 in January, and iron ore was at $37 the month before.
I've seen copper at 60.
Yeah.
I'm old.
First question to Johnson was an open one, but with a caveat, without mentioning the word sustainability. What is the #1 thing keeping Caterpillar's customers awake at night? The answer was surprising, given how far the industry has come since 2016. The #1 issue keeping mining companies awake, according to Johnson, is investor pressure. And that investor pressure has only increased over the last year. Quote, if you talk to mining companies even 12 to 18 months ago, there wasn't really as much investor pressure as what you're seeing now. On top of that, whether you're a small contract miner or a big player, watch for questions there. There's a definite feeling growth is underway, and they want to be very mindful how they do it this time. In unrelated news, there's a billboard down the road here for Black Butte Copper. It's a project that says we are legal and permitted and committed to doing it right. So they're having problems with environmentalists, which is, they're not the only ones. Yes, Bear?
Okay. To answer these questions they've got here, Electrahall was a diesel electric truck, and it would have a diesel engine running a generator, electric motors at the wheels. And the reason they really needed to do that in the old days was the transmissions and drive lines could not take the shifting of 3,000 horsepower. It would break things. Nowadays, and Caterpillar really pioneered the use of mechanical transmissions in bigger trucks, and what it takes is the use of electromechanical clutches that are very careful not to apply those kinds of shock loads to the drive line. And the advantage of the mechanical drive is that it's more energy efficient. You have lower losses than a diesel electric. But also one of the big problems with the diesel electrics, they have something called a retarder. And what that means, you turn the motors on the wheels into generators and then dissipate the electricity in a very large resistance unit, colloquially known as the toaster. Because when you're dissipating 3,000 kilowatts,
Now he's getting technical. He's doing math things.
Yeah, that's a lot of heat. But the negative to a electric drive like that is once you exceed certain speeds, it becomes less efficient. So if you ever overspeed going downhill, your braking system becomes less efficient. Think of it as brake fade on steroids. The Caterpillar trucks, on the other hand, and I've driven those, they have multiple disc oil cooled brakes. It's like a clutch pack, if you know what that is, and they're amazingly powerful, and they dissipate the heat. They heat hydraulic fluid and then run it through a radiator, basically.
Back to the article.
Okay, just a second. But they can stop your truck on a downgrade in a hurry, no problem.
But with the green energy transition in full swing, industrial metals near record highs, iron ore a cash cow even at $100 below its peak, and many commentators willing to bandy about the term super cycle. Why all this caution? Good question. Yes, there's optimism, says Johnson, but despite the bullish sentiment on the market, companies are mindful of missteps in investment. How to project timelines can be derailed, and the need for study instead of moving too fast. Quote, that's slowing in some ways, some of the momentum that could have been building right now. I would say there's definitely growth, but it's more controlled growth, which I think will result in longer potential upsides as well because it will be drawn out over time. In the aftermath of the previous supercycle, mining.com was reporting with boring regularity on multi-billion-dollar asset write-downs, boardroom purges, and companies suffocating under piles of debt. That period was followed by solemn promises of capital allocation discipline, declaration of the paramountcy of the shareholder returns, and the death knell of the mega project.
Paramountcy? That's not a word.
Paramountcy.
Yeah, I know. That's still not really a word.
Well, they called it a word. It is a neologism. Neologisms are a thing. He doesn't know neologisms, okay? What emerged from that period is a chastened industry, but with forecasts of near universal above-trend growth for industrial metals, requirements for streams of gold, and even the perennial laggard uranium back in demand. How much longer can the focus be on dividends instead of drills and dozers? Quote, I think it definitely depends on the company. I come across mining companies that are investing copper and gold that are willing to invest in some of the riskier assets. You also have a few out on the forefront. Johnson says with so much variation in outcomes given factors such as government regulations or infrastructure costs or the social license to operate companies are making sure to take calculated risks. Johnson was saying this a couple of weeks before the world's largest miner, not known for being particularly adventurous, was reported to be looking at the ultimate mining frontier, the Congo. Johnson also cited Africa as an area for growth for the equipment manufacturer that includes doing business with many Chinese mining companies in the region. Lovely. When asked about rising geopolitical tensions like the trade spat between China and Australia and its impact on mining markets, and particularly on Caterpillar's ability to do business, Johnson was sanguine. Quote, do these events like the upheavals in the Asian thermal coal trade and shifts in the market impact us? Absolutely. When demand is being pushed into a more cost-competitive region, it can definitely make a difference. We've seen that flow. But what is interesting, after a few years, it can reverse quickly. You have to be able to be flexible in the environment. And I would say from an overall market perspective, we don't see it shrinking. We see the opportunity to actually be growing, especially as you're moving into markets that traditionally haven't had a lot of growth. And just how rapidly can markets change? Australian export thermal coal was trading at $50 a ton a year ago. Today it's setting all-time highs above $200 a ton, while in China, shortages have forced domestic prices as high as $300 a ton. The energy transition is forcing mining into the limelight like never before. Oil and gas never really won the PR battle with the public when it comes to extractive industries. Is the mining industry, particularly hard rock mining, ready for the public scrutiny that's going to come with the greater awareness of the metals in electric cars, windmills, and solar panels? Are we getting the message out? Quote, unfortunately, the message is not permeating as it should.
Oh dear.
A big part should be broader education of the public who do not understand what it is that mining companies do.
Well, apparently we need to grind them down.
I can't disagree that the public does not understand mining companies. I do disagree with the permeating thing. I don't like the permeating thing, okay? ESG, environment, safety, and governance, is top of mind, but it's often not the positive messages that are getting out. There's a lack of awareness of the impact of miners. Take Freeport in Indonesia as an example, which are involved with communities for many decades and build schools, hospitals, banks, jobs, programs, etc. If sustainability was the buzzword at Mine Expo, automation came a close second. But automation is probably a stand-in for an underlying problem, a severe and growing labor and skills shortage in the mining industry. Little side note there. I was perusing the A to Z occupational statistics over at the Bureau of Labor Statistics the other day. Mining engineering and related fields are projected to be on a 4 to 6% growth curve starting this year. Very, very interesting there. Johnson says the skilled labor shortage extends beyond mining. Quote, the supply base is feeling it. We're seeing it everywhere. It's broad and it's global. I don't know how long it will last, and that's the real key. At what point, with everything bouncing around, does that settle out? I think everyone's hoping that in the next year we'll see some improvement. Well, with most universities around here teaching comparative underwater basket weaving, I rather doubt it, but I'm just a pessimist, I guess. Issues of skills and labor are responsible for a continuing pull on new technology as mining companies try to stabilize their inputs and enhance productivity. For every mining company, every conversation is around automation. I don't think there's one conversation we've had in the last 12 months where they haven't asked about it. And it doesn't have to be full automation. It could be pieces of the business. Some companies aren't ready to move to automation, but they want some elements on site. Johnson warns investing in automation for purposes of labor cost arbitrage is not the right approach. Neither is automation for its own sake. The payoff is in safety and it's in productivity. But if you don't change the process, you're not going to get the result. If you have a bad process and you try to automate it, you're still going to get a bad result. Wow. Random common sense.
It'll be automatically bad.
Caterpillar's mining division has a fast-growing services and solutions business, and Johnson says automation goes far beyond equipment. So part of what we do when we go into automate a mine or system or subset is looking to take the waste out first and then automate that process first. We have engineers that are sitting with the customer 24/7 and looking at those cycle time improvements that can be made on every loop. We program that in, and that becomes your new baseline, so you're continually improving productivity. People, process, and continuous improvement drives that. Then you're getting consistency. Then you start a new base. Then you keep going. But it does take time. You don't get it overnight. Well,
I want it now.
They're slackers.
Wow.
You should be able to get it overnight. After all, FedEx can do it overnight. So, just saying. From an operations perspective, particularly so at fly-in, fly-out sites, having consistent results means meaningful payback for an investment in automation. Caterpillar points out its autonomous fleet at Jimblebar, BHP's Pilbara iron ore mine, has resulted in a 20% improvement in productivity at the mine and a 50% reduction in safety incidents. That's pretty impressive. Last year, Jimblebar pulled off a rare feat, exceeding its nameplate capacity of 65 million tons per annum, with an output of 67.3 million tons for 2020. Overall, Caterpillar's global autonomous truck fleet has racked up more than 3.5 billion hours of operation, each averaging $7,000 hours per year. Total number of hours in a year is 8,760, by the way. So, wow. And has not been associated with any workplace injuries. Mine Expo was the second time in 2021 Caterpillar was showcasing their wares in Vegas. The company had a big presence at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, more associated with Nintendo and PlayStation than dump trucks and dozers. It's an indication of the fast pace of new technology development and deployment in mining, with the nature of Caterpillar's business, including MineStar, its software, data management, monitoring, and automation solutions. Absolutely, we are competing with tech companies. What we've learned through our own experiments working with partners and other software companies that if you bring in someone really smart with expertise in a single area like writing software to fix your issue, it doesn't work very well. Really. Johnson says one way Caterpillar is able to attract tech talent, which otherwise may have ended up at startups or the big names in Silicon Valley, is because the company does not offer just a single solution. We have the opportunity to have a career in a lot of disciplines and to move within the company and have multiple careers. It's a global business. Our engineers get international assignments and move around. If you're looking for a career with variation, that's where I feel we have an advantage. You can start out writing software for automation and move on to designing the next iteration of an emissions-free truck. We have all of these ecosystems. Ecosystems. Those ecosystems are dozens of partnerships and joint ventures Caterpillar has with, among others, DARPA, NASA, and Carnegie Mellon. And working with these giant machines has its own charms, I guess. Exactly. Wow, sounds like Caterpillar is getting really interesting these days. I do know that in their ag division, people are quite a bit upset right now because amidst the supply shortages, Caterpillar decided that their non-corporate parts stores for farmers in places like Montana would come in a distant second place behind the corporate parts stores and the corporate repair facilities in terms of getting very necessary agricultural parts and software. A lot of farmers are finding that they have to pull their old non-automated, non-computerized, non-smart tractors and other ag equipment out of the back 40 and put it on the fields again because, well, a lot of the new stuff they're building, a farmer can't even wrench on. Everything is locked up and it voids the warranty if you even try to touch it. That is, if you can even get the parts, and parts are in very short supply. Speaking of things in short supply, I'm going to be looking up a couple of articles on the issue, but apparently there's now a worldwide magnesium shortage that is going to pretty much destroy the new car industry, along with the bottleneck aluminum shortage and throttling back of aluminum exports by Pandaland. They are severely curtailing their magnesium because the factories that normally refine it are only running 2 days a week due to the energy shortage. And then a major magnesium producing part of Pandaland ended up inconveniently underwater, apparently recently, due to some sort of, precipitation of some kind. One of those climate change things we've all been hearing about. So there's now a worldwide magnesium shortage. And apparently, the only way you can use aluminum to make a car is if there's magnesium and other things involved. So, car manufacturers are not happy campers today because it was bad enough when you couldn't get chips. It's even worse when you can't get crumple zones and doors and other miscellaneous things like bodies, frames and engine blocks. And, well, they'll figure something out. Besides, Lord Malarkey said he's going to take millions of cars off the road in the coming couple of years here. So it's not like we really need those new cars anyway, now is it?
By building trains, was that it?
Oh yeah, we're going to have trains everywhere.
It's going to work great here in Montana.
I don't think it's going to work great anywhere. Gold price went back up to above 1,800 as the Fed prepares to taper asset purchases. Wow, the Fed is going to start tapering, huh? right. If you believe that, I have a tinfoil hat to sell you. Gold prices surpassed the key $1,800 level on Monday as investors continue to assess the Federal Reserve's likely response to inflationary pressures. After the chair said last week that inflation could last longer than expected. Uh-oh. Now, my only question there is, would last longer than who expected? Those of us who actually live with inflation are expecting it to last at least 3 to 5 years, which may or may not be the Fed's new definition of transitory, since they refuse to define transitory. It's one of those things. Spot gold gained 0.8% by 11:30 a.m. Eastern to trade at $1807.99 an ounce, its highest in over a month. U.S. gold futures also rose 0.7% to $1809.80 per ounce in New York. And there's a nice little interesting graph. Gold's rise above 1800 comes on the back of last week's rally, which saw the metal at one point hitting its highest level since early September after Fed Chair Jerome Powell said the U.S. bank should start reducing its asset purchases. Powell, however, added that talks of raising the short-term interest rate are premature as of now. Gold is often considered an inflation hedge, but reduced stimulus and interest rate hikes tend to push government bond yields up, translating into a higher opportunity cost for the non-yielding bullion. There is some short-term momentum building in gold as some investors look for an inflation hedge and see gold as a potential provider of that, IG markets analyst Kyle Rada told Reuters, adding 1830 is a key resistance level if gold breaks above 1800. In the long term, however, Rada said gold's trajectory hinged mainly on how aggressive central banks would act to contain inflation. In a Bloomberg article last week, mining industry veterans David Garofalo and Rob McEwen predicted investors will catch on soon that global inflationary pressures are less transitory and more intense than central bankers and consumer price indices suggest. Nah, I'm shocked, I tell you. As such, gold's inflation protection appeal probably will send prices to $3,000 an ounce when realization sets in, the former Gold Corp executives said. So we've got 3,000 from these Gold Corp yo-yos. We've got 5,000 still from the Bank of America. Last I checked, the yo-yos at the U.S. Bank, we're talking around 2,500 to 3,000. So at least more of the bankers are beginning to say that there is a higher price for gold in the future. Since the tinfoil hat goddess is firmly convinced that they're the ones manipulating the price in the first place, it's nice to know they're going to give us a little bit of a break on all this nonsense. It's rather polite of them at this point, If you're going to screw somebody over, at least kiss them first and give them flowers. Just saying, just saying here. So let's see what else is going on in the world. Will shortages in the economy extend to precious metals? Now, this is a question that I hadn't seen, and it's a pretty interesting one. For the first time in most Americans' lifetimes, they're having to navigate chronic shortages. Wow, that's true. I mean, we're partying like it's 1976 now, and even then, there were not the shortages we're seeing now.
No.
From bare shelves at discount stores to contract labor being unavailable, the supply of goods and services is seemingly unable to keep up with demand. Examples continue to mount. A shortage of bicycles and component parts is expected to persist through 2022. On that note, several serious bikers I know have had serious bikes and serious bike parts on back order for about 8 months now, and they're getting informed once again that it may be July or August of next year before they get their fancy new bike things. So, New and used cars are in such short supply that fair value pricing is impossible for buyers to negotiate. Yeah, our local pawn shop is selling trucks for cheaper than cars. I saw a crap box Chevy today, looked to be about probably a 2015 or so. No idea what the mileage was, but it was $7,700. Ouch. Okay. Nike warned in a recent earnings call that production and delivery shortfalls would persist through at least next spring. Like we can't live without Nike? I don't know. Disposable medical gloves are so difficult to come by, used ones are being superficially cleaned and repackaged for export in substandard facilities in Thailand. Ooh, interesting. The American Society of Health System Pharmacists lists 192 drugs in short supply, but the good news is that list is down from 270 drugs in short supplies a mere 9 months ago. So we're making progress. Progress is here. This is progress. Hotels are curtailing basic services such as housekeeping due to staffing shortages. Businesses and home office workers are struggling to obtain desks, chairs, and paper. Yes, folks, there is a worldwide paper shortage. The number of new books being printed for the holiday season is at an all-time low. Biden administration officials blame shipping container backlogs for driving supply chain disruptions. But something bigger is to blame. Widespread shortages are a symptom of central planning gone awry. Shortages are a feature of socialist economies which inherently lack the ability to respond to changing supply and demand dynamics. In a properly functioning market economy, price signals cause supply to respond quickly to fluctuations in demand. These crucial price signals have been distorted and nearly obliterated in many cases by massive interventions into the economy by the government and the Federal Reserve. Record numbers of people are effectively being paid not to work. No wonder there's a labor shortage. More on that later. And calls by large corporations to import more low-wage immigrant labor. At the same time, the Fed is artificially suppressing interest rates. That has led the effect of artificially stimulating asset market speculation as well as consumer demand and exacerbating inflation. While the Fed insists the recent high inflation readings are transitory, in fact, Yellen pointed out that they've gone down a tiny fraction in the last month or so, and that long-term inflation expectations remain anchored at 2%. Aside here, what they're anchored at bears no relationship whatsoever to reality, never has. Investors can't afford to take the central planner's word for it on this. We must all be prepared to navigate unpredictable and erratic markets amid the potential for rising inflation risk. If investor psychology begins to shift toward inflation protection and hunkering down financially, the bullion market could quickly see demand overwhelm supply. Shortages of retail gold and silver products would mean premium price spikes and possible carryover into surging spot prices as well. Over the past couple of years, the perpetually dysfunctional U.S. Mint, a government bureaucracy, has consistently failed to provide adequate quantities of its gold and silver American Eagle coins. Demand continues to strain available inventories. Could it be that they're kind of running out of gold and silver to turn into coins? No, that would just be a conspiracy theory now, wouldn't it? Over the past couple of years, we know this. After selling around 15 million Silver Eagles in 2019, demand for the coins more than doubled in 2020. This year is on track to exceed that total with 27 million Silver Eagles sold so far in 2021. Demand for Gold Eagles has also soared since last year. After selling only 108,000 in 2019, the Mint got hit with 747,000 orders in 2020. It has already sold 928,000 of its iconic gold coins in 2021 year to date. Wow. How big a percentage increase is that, Professor Hardrock? You want to take a ballpark from 108,000 to 928,000 in 2 years?
About ninefold, about a 900%.
That's what I thought.
800% increase.
Yeah, interesting. Scarcity of eagles, along with other bullion products, is keeping premiums elevated. Yeah, they're running around 50% at least. Many of Money Metal's poorly capitalized competitors are struggling with long delays in order fulfillment and delivery. Money Metal's exchange, and they're touting themselves here, but they are pretty good, is operating with only minor delays on a few items, but the day may come when some types of bullion products are fully sold out and unavailable anywhere. The good news is those who hold hard to get precious metals will be in the driver's seat. They can choose to sell whenever they believe prices, including potential buyback premiums over spot, are high enough. If government-induced inflation and supply disruptions continue to get worse, chances are today's bullion prices will look low compared to where they're headed, which would not surprise me in the least. Because people can't find stuff anymore, okay? We are running out of places to find stuff. So let's see what Kitco has to say here about inflationary pressures, since we were just discussing inflationary pressures, kind of, sort of. Is persistent the new transitory? That's their headline.
Man.
The chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, and the Treasury Secretary of the United States, Janet Yellen, believe that current inflationary pressures are transitory, based on pent-up demand, supply chain bottlenecks, and labor shortages. Unquestionably, we are living in unprecedented times, which have forced governments worldwide and central banks globally to aid the economic recovery from the global recession, which began as a direct result of the pandemic in March 2020. A combination of government fiscal stimulus and a highly accommodative monetary policy by central banks worldwide has improved the global economy. Has improved the global economy.
Wow, much more of this improvement will all be dead.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing, Bear. With improvements like this, who needs a new catastrophe coming around the corner? Improved. Really?
It all depends on what the definition of is.
It all depends on what the definition of improved is. If this is improved, then I am a blue-assed baboon. Okay? Ook, ook. As many analysts believe, the chance of the global recession becoming a global depression is halted. Whoa! Really? Okay.
For the moment.
This is going to age like milk. This is going to age like milk here. As the world begins to recover from one of the most difficult global scenarios this century's economists worldwide are determining at what cost this recovery has resulted. The most current numbers from the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics indicate that inflationary pressures, CPI-U, as of September are currently at 5.4%. Compared to inflationary pressures 1 year ago, this is an increase of 0.1% over inflationary pressures in August and the highest inflationary pressures since 2009. Wow. This Build Back Better thing is going really well. I mean, we're hitting new highs everywhere. Both the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury Department continue to insist that the majority of current inflationary pressures are transitory. This weekend, Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary, tried to reassure investors that the United States will not lose control over the battle to curtail rising inflation. Speaking to CNN, of course, she said, "I don't think we're about to lose control of inflation. On a 12-month basis, the inflation rate will remain high into next year because of what's already happened. But I expect improvement by the middle to end of next year, the second half of next year." So that means the definition of transitory is about a year and a half? Nah.
Well, in historical terms, that is transitory.
In geological terms, that's positively a nanosecond.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So she speaks geological time.
Yeah.
Lady's a geologist. This is in line with recent statements issued by Chairman Powell. However, the current tone regarding inflationary pressures has indicated enlarged concerns that inflation will be more persistent than originally believed. During the chairman's keynote speech titled Monetary Policy in the Time of COVID, at the annual Jackson Hole Economic Symposium, he mentioned inflation 89 times. That's a highly inflated number. He also suggested 5 key assumptions to support his view the current level of inflation will be transitory in nature. According to an article penned by Jeff Cox of CNBC, he indicated he believes the Federal Reserve Chair Powell's 5 measuring sticks on inflation aren't holding up very well. Furthermore, he indicated there are weaknesses in each of the 5 planks that, if not thwarting it altogether, at least undermine the Fed's inflation position and give markets and consumers plenty to watch. Suppose the recent increase in gold pricing in October are any indication of investor sentiments regarding inflation. In that case, the vast majority believe higher inflation could be long-lasting and remain far above the Federal Reserve's target of 2%. Well, considering that op-eds here and there are already saying that the new normal should be 4% because 4% is actually healthier than 2%. I'm thinking that 2% number is, like every other government number, utterly and completely inconsistent with reality. Gold today, on a technical basis, had a major breakout as it traded and closed above 1,800 per ounce. The chart included in this article has an upper resistance line based on the series of lower highs in June 2021, $1,920, compared to the highs of September 2021, $1,836. On Friday last week, gold traded to a high of 1,815, but could not sustain a close above 1,800. However, that changed today with gold futures basis and the most active December 2021 contract opening at 1794.20 and closing solidly above 1,800 per ounce. As of 5:45 p.m. Eastern, gold futures are currently fixed at $1808.90, a net increase of $12.60. So yeah, I believe that the word transitory may be being misdefined here.
I like Jeff Bybee's here.
That is true, Jeff. And if the truck in question is one of those ultra long ones, it's got like 19 axles and 73 zillion tires, that's about where we are at the moment. But it's transitory. This is what Build Back Better means, people. Now, there's an interesting little op-ed here from our friends over at Wilshire Phoenix. The Fed won't be able to get inflation under control. Wow. That is a prescient statement. Gold prices going much higher. Investors are once again turning into gold, pushing prices back above 1,800 an ounce, and one firm expects gold prices to continue to move higher as it is unlikely the Federal Reserve will be able to get the inflation under control anytime soon. In a recent interview with Kitco News, Wade Genther, managing partner at Wilshire Phoenix, which launched the Wilshire W Shares Enhanced Gold Trust earlier this year, said it's not surprising gold's been lackluster through most of the summer as bond yields have been rising. The yield on 10-year notes is holding near its highest level in 3 months. At the same time, Gethner noted the yield on 10-year notes has roughly doubled from last year. Gold has also struggled to attract safe haven demand as equity markets continue to move from record highs to record highs, Gethner added. However, Genther also said rising inflation and the growing threat of stagflation are forcing many investors to reevaluate their need for inflation and safe haven hedge. For the past 5 months, the U.S. Consumer Price Index has been above 5%. Quote, if you asked me last year the gold price was, if inflation was at 5%, I'd say we'd be at record highs. We'd be back at 2,000 again by now, Gentner said. However, instead of supporting gold prices, the inflation pressures have driven expectations for the Federal Reserve to tighten its monetary policy. Economists are expecting the Federal Reserve to reduce its monthly bond purchases before the end of the year. At the same time, markets are pricing in a rate hike as early as June 2022. It feels like people still have faith in the Fed, and I just don't see the Fed getting in front of the inflation curve. Wow. Captain Obvious. Okay. Genther added that current inflation environment is different from the last few years because it isn't being driven by consumer demand. Prices are going higher because of major supply chain issues around the world. Some economists expect the global supply bottleneck could take years to fix. A time somebody said that. There's nothing the Federal Reserve can do to fix the supply chain. The Fed's tools just don't work because the inflation is on the long side of the track. This is not inflation driven by consumer demand. Not only is the Federal Reserve unable to fix the global supply chain, But Genther also noted that monetary policy could only be tightened so much. Growing government debt has limited how high interest rates can go, he said.
Mm-hmm.
With gold prices back over 1,800 an ounce, Genther said he expects it's only a matter of time before the market sees new sustained bullish momentum. Genther added the firm's adaptive gold-backed exchange-traded fund still remains 100% invested in the gold market as volatility has been relatively low. Good for them. Okay, so we're looking at a pretty positive gold thing. So I was looking at a really, really cool maritime map today. I was curious. It dawned on me. Everybody talks about container ships. I had no idea how many ships there actually were in the world, much less how many container ships there were. Well, according to this maritime website I was looking at, there are 56,000 registered large vessels in the world. They didn't count little ones. What they defined as large, I didn't look at, of which 30% or so, about 17,000, are container ships. So I was looking at this map that somebody posted on the front page of the internet, and they had selected out only cargo ships to show on the visual display, and cargo ships are green. And every continent on the planet, with the exception of Antarctica, there were only like 7 or 8 green dots at Antarctica. Every continent on the planet had a solid wall of green around the edges and solid ribbons of green going into all these major river systems. It was fascinating and rather scary. And further down on the front page of the internet, on the particular sub I was on Reddit, there were people's various anecdotal videos. Californians actually realized that A, they have ports, and B, some of their highways go by ports. And so a few of them actually decided to pull out their smartphones while their partner was driving by these ports over the weekend. Because, of course, everyone knows, Lord Malarkey said the ports are operating 24/7. Everybody knows this. Well, there were dozens of videos that said, OMG, WTF. I thought they said the ports were operating 24/7, but none of the cranes are running, and there's no trucks going in and out the gate. Here at Long Beach, and here at Los Angeles, and here at San Francisco. So what's going on? People are actually beginning to notice that maybe, just maybe, Lord Malarkey is full of it. We already know that Little Red Lying Hood is full of it. I mean, Senorita Circleback is just, if she circles back any faster, she's going to start spinning to the point where she will become a miniature sun, and start collecting bullshit politicians into her orbit, because that some of the spin coming out of DC these days is getting really ridiculous. So there was a very long and very informative thread on Twitter that was put out by a blue check. Not only this, but it actually made sense. Yeah, I know. I'm shocked too. A blue check actually made sense. Yes, he proposed a bunch of leftist solutions to the problem, but he identified the problem properly. Because what's going on here, and Bear has said the same thing about you guys and your mining, the majority of your money should be sunk into one part of your system that does not break down. When you have a bottleneck, you need to throw all of your resources at the bottleneck. Well, what's going on here is the ports around the world are filling up with containers. The trucks can't get in there to get the containers because the trucks still have empty chassis on board. They can't drop off the empty chassis, empty containers on their chassis. They can't drop off the empty container because there's no place to put it. And apparently these empty containers are not fungible. So if you get a container from Company A, Warehouse 27, it needs to go back to Company A, Warehouse 27. You can't just dump them all in one central location and go pick up full ones. they have to go back to where they belong for some bizarre reason. Okay, there's probably a better way to do that. So then you have ports like Long Beach, which for some bizarre reason will not allow warehouses to stack containers more than 2 containers high. Now, maybe this is for a practical reason like earthquakes, but since LA is stacking them dozens high and in ziggurats and pyramids that make it look like a Mayan civilization gone wild, I don't think it's something as practical as earthquakes. I think it's probably something more likely like high stacks of containers will, lower our property values or spoil the view or something like that. Or maybe it's because they have inferior cranes. Who knows? The cranes themselves, apparently a whole heck of a lot of them are broken or just not operating. That's something that has apparently, according to truckers, been a perennial problem with these ports, the ports that are never open 24/7, is that a lot of the times cranes aren't even operating. Another interesting thing that truckers were talking about that I wasn't aware of is apparently there are these people at ports called lumpers that do the forklift thing and the crane thing and the moving thing around thing. And apparently, unless you happen to be a Teamster or you have some other mysterious passport of some kind, you need to pay these lumpers $800 or more to get them to do their job for you. That's not very helpful, but apparently that's the case.
Very helpful to the lumper.
Yeah, it's very helpful to the lumper. They probably don't get to keep the money. I'd say the Teamsters probably get to keep the money. So Lord Malarkey ordered the ports to be open 24/7. Well, having a port open 24/7, if nobody's working it and the cranes aren't moving and the trucks can't drop off empty containers to get full containers, they've started leaving empty containers in residential neighborhoods so they can pick up full containers. Really isn't doing much good at this point. And in the middle of all this, some squeals are coming through from the one thing that Lord Malarkey mentioned in the context of removing millions of cars from the road that nobody ever thinks about, and that's rail. Apparently, all of the rail in the United States is controlled by 2 or 3 monopolies. And also, apparently, while a lot of this rail is automated, the critical applications, the things like repairing stuff, are still done by human beings, which is really cool. But there is a shortage of human beings that are trained and have the appropriate certifications required by various government agencies to actually do these jobs. This isn't something you can advertise for on Craigslist and, hire somebody out of a day labor place to do type jobs. These are actually important jobs. And apparently a couple of the rail companies out of the 3 that we actually have are talking about mandating certain medical bona fides by December 8th. If you don't meet their medical requirements by December 8th, you no longer have a job. This may be a rather short-sighted idea, since a good number of these people have already stated that they see no reason to comply with this particular piece of medical, this particular medical request, and their jobs are such that they can't be fired because there's nobody to replace them. Even a 2 or 3% attrition rate here of people deciding to retire early and take their partial pensions, or people deciding to just get out of the industry, is going to have a significant impact on all of the rail east of the Mississippi and about half the rail west of the Mississippi. Right in the middle of trucker problems between supply shortages, labor shortages, equipment shortages, part shortages, rising diesel prices and not rising wages, and bottlenecked ports, and everything else, it is no surprise that the mainstream media has finally begun to tell the American people that you may not be able to get your Nikes or your hot toys or your certain snack foods this winter because things are going on. A couple of other things are going on. Apparently, there's food rotting on some of those ships that are out at sea right now. And the backups on the East Coast, by the way, if anybody's interested, are averaging 4.5 weeks outside of New York. They don't seem to be having too many backups outside of Florida. And Florida is talking about offering incentives to companies to go through the Panama Canal and bring things to their ports, which would be really cool. Florida is also offering incentives to police officers and other first responders in areas of the country where government policies are making it extremely unfriendly for police officers, and proposed government policies may cause the loss of their job. So go Governor DeSantis. I like that dude. I just wish our governor would start making more positive noises, because our governor's been doing okay, but he could do a little better here. But in the matter of the purported labor shortage, there's an interesting phenomenon occurring on Reddit, and it is not just Reddit. It's being echoed elsewhere on social media and in forums and on various alternative websites, 4chan and everywhere else. The communists have decided that the moment to launch their revolution has arrived. The workers of the world, the oppressed proletariat, and everybody else, have decided, after sitting home and getting unemployment checks for a while, and some of these people were smart and used those unemployment checks to pay off bills and build up a cushion and everything else, they're saying, no, I don't want to flip burgers for $16 an hour anymore. I'm sick of being treated like crap by customers. I'm sick of having to work 35 hours or 30 hours or 37 hours to get any sort of benefits, and I'm sick of not getting anywhere. And we, the people, now have the power. Yeah, we, the people, now have the power. As long as we sit on our butts at home with our hands underneath our said butts and wait, these companies will have to continue raising their wages and give us more benefits to get back to work. Some of these rumbles are being heard in other industries. It's not just the retail drones. It's not just the call center people. It's not just the fast food people or hospitality. A lot of truckers are beginning to say, none of that stuff is going to roll out of the ports at all without us. And we are sick of sitting in line 7 hours to pick up a container when we get paid by the mile. So you better start paying us by the hour, or you better start compensating us. And it does not surprise me to see this at all. Because really, if you're the kind of person who has this mentality, you can't have a better chance at this point to get the point across if you could get some unity going. I mean, this is how we ended up with unions in the first place, was the workers in the early days of serious and true exploitation in labor in the industrial world finally got fed up enough that they banded together and said, okay, I might as well be dead anyway because this job is killing me. So we're going to sit here until we get what we want. I think this is a very short-sighted idea. I think it is very rude. I think it is very counterproductive. And I think it is only going to end up making things exponentially worse over the coming months, because none of these people understand basic economics. My Hardee's / Carl's Jr. down the street is now offering $16.50 for shift leaders, plus a sign-on bonus. A couple of places in town are fast food are offering $16 an hour plus a sign-on bonus of $8, $9, $1,000, and they're still not getting people because the few people that are here are holding out for more because cost of living is rising so fast. With the system as out of balance as it is right now, these types of grassroots expressions of frustration are really, really not a good thing at all. I find it highly problematic. The tinfoil hat goddess is most unamused by these people. But this is a phenomenon. I mean, this is not just a labor shortage, as the oppressed communists, young, are saying. This isn't a labor shortage. This is a wage shortage. So I think that our federal government and the administration of Lord Malarkey are very much out of the loop when it comes to what is actually going on in the real world. Because if they are not out of the loop, then they are even more culpable at this point, and it is even more deliberate what they're doing than it appears to be. So all I can say at this point is food shortages this winter include small grains, oats, coffee beans, tea. Various nut milks are having transitory shortages. Of course, the small grain shortage is also going to cause follow-on shortages and rises in prices in pet foods, animal foods, and everything else. Shrinkflation is continuing. Actual inflation in terms of prices is continuing and will continue. So everybody just needs to keep working on getting stability in your household and getting things built up, because it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better. Amongst the actual people that work in supply that I've been talking to, they're saying 2 years minimum, 3 years minimum, 4 years minimum, if nothing goes wrong in the meantime, before we see anything like normal.
Before
And it's not going to be the normal that we used to have either.
BC, before COVID.
Yeah, it's not going to be BC. It's never going to go back to BC, according to some of the experts. But those experts don't make it on CNN. So anyway, that's all for this week, guys. Bye-bye. Better than Diet Coke.
Yeah, tricky. Now, if something goes wrong, will they pay her because they forced her? See, that's the thing. I think it was in Florida where DeSantis was wanting companies, if they force you to take a vaccine, that they should be liable for any bad effects. Yep.
Well, since the regulation they're proposing releases companies from needing to report adverse effects,
Yep.
You don't have any evidence to sue them.
David, Roberts Haptings, and Terry all sending good positives there to you. As you can see, Eva's doing better. She's doing just fine. She's doing well out in the field too. So quite happy with her recovery. I think the news on
Even better than soda.
the price of gold that, that's very good for the industry. It's very good for us. So to get back to a previous thing she was discussing on this automation in mining, the mining industry is one of those industries is going to be the forefront of automation because, first of all, they're using very large equipment that costs a great amount of money, that does a lot of earth moving that's very valuable, and any incremental improvements they can make to that provides a substantial increase in profits. Years ago, back in the 80s, they come up with something called computer dispatch. Previous to that, you basically had shovel A had 4 trucks assigned to it. Shovel B had 3 trucks assigned to it, like that. And so either the shovel would be waiting on a truck or the trucks would be waiting on the shovel on a regular basis, because it rarely works out that you need an even number of trucks to keep your shovel busy. With computer dispatch, the computer is watching all the shovels and all the trucks and more efficiently telling the trucks where to go to pick up the next load. Now, this means the truck driver is going to be doing different things all day long. Once they dump their load, they push in a button that says ready. The computer then sends out the dispatch signal saying, okay, go to shovel 52 for a load of ore or whatever. And by that simple little addition, typically costing about $500,000 to $1 million to equip a fleet of vehicles with the computer dispatch systems, they would take a $300 million haulage setup and improve the efficiency by 10 to 20% just by that. And so now, you got Broken Hill Proprietary, or I don't know who it is now, but your grandmother was born in space, Santa Rita. You might want to explain that a little bit, Blind Date. Yeah, I have a feeling once the precious metals break out, they're going to break out pretty big. I think they've been suppressed pretty well. The other thing about mining is it's a very controlled environment. As they're finding out on the road, the biggest problem with computers driving cars is the human drivers don't follow the rules. And therefore, you can't predict that. The computer can't do it. In these big mining operations, they have dedicated haulage ways for the computer equipped vehicles. And they never have to stop for the driver to go to the bathroom or eat lunch or anything like that. And they have safety systems that say keep the humans basically separated from the haulage equipment. If there's a failure, it fails safe, i.e. it parks itself out of the way. But it allows them to get, yes, they are robots. They're robot haulage vehicles, absolutely. And it allows them to do the job with a much simpler algorithm, so to speak, or series of algorithms than it would to try and drive on a road. And when they increase the productivity of the fleet by a significant amount, it really helps. Now, they said, and I don't necessarily believe them, that they didn't expect to save a lot on labor overall because it would take more people to maintain the equipment and this, that, and the other. Yeah, I don't know. I think they're just kind of, Fauciing a little bit there. But yeah, but it does provides a more efficient system. In the case of underground mining, they pioneered remote control stuff 40 years ago due to dangerous conditions, where they would use remote control equipment to go out into areas that were valuable to get material out of, but which were too dangerous to send a human being into. And so the mining industry is going to be at the forefront of this automation wave. Now, a positive about the automation is modern democracies do not replace their people well. They don't have a high enough birth rate. If it wasn't for immigration, the United States would have been losing population for the last 40 years. And if you have a situation where you have fewer and fewer people, then either you have a lower standard of living or you have to create as much productivity with fewer people. And that's where automation can be balanced with a shrinking population and maintain a high standard of living. Now, this doesn't work when you have an increasing population nearly as well. Okay. But as a way of dealing with the birth deficit while maintaining a high standard of living, it does have some serious potential possibilities. There's going to be, problems, but, the buggy whip manufacturers weren't too happy when the cars came along either. So there's always adjustments.
There are still buggy whip manufacturers.
Not as many.
But the ones there are get top dollar, just like that one dude in the country that makes vellum.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they do make good money. Anyhow, so that's the thing there. In terms of the general situation, my personal thing is this still looks terribly unstable to me. Be careful, stock up. I wouldn't be making huge, risky moves right now if I could avoid them. And we continue to stock up a bit here. It's also a lot easier for us because we're just an old couple and we don't have a lot of expensive habits. We don't have any young children and things like that. Although the maintenance is getting a little ridiculous at times here. Oh my goodness. Luckily now I'm on Medicare. I've pretty much stocked my warehouse. Do we have, well, let's see. First of all, I'll do a quick recap of the week for the latecomers. The resin absorption circuit seems to be working okay, although I had to put in a particle filter at the beginning to keep from plugging some stuff later.
This isn't good.
And we still don't have any numbers back from the lab, so I don't know how well it's working. Visually, it appears to be doing what it's supposed to be doing. How much gold it's recovering, impossible to tell until those lab results come in. The samples were given to them on Friday. Do you want to interrupt or not?
Yeah.
Okay, she wants to interrupt.
Cargo liner firms to be charged for containers that linger at U.S. West Coast ports.
Okay.
So on top of the quadruple container charge, they're now going to get charged for the containers not coming home. I'll see if I can find more details for next week.
Hello, Truth Seeker. No, the bottle roll is not running. I am pumping pregnant solution through resin cartridges that are held in conventional filter housings. And then the solution goes into the barren tank. I just got the system set up on Friday or Thursday rather, and got the samples taken and to the lab. they'll be back any day now. Who knows? Yeah, tricky. Unfortunately, they had too many carbs. Eva doesn't approve. But thank you for sending those videos. That was kind of cool. Yeah, it's Monday. All right, Kevin.
Those videos were amazing.
Anyhow, in terms of the decline, I'm going to have to reset the posts on that first timber set, and got to advance about another 4 or 5 feet to get the second timber set in there. And we're going to have to be hoisting using the head frame by then. I'll be building the hoist bracket basically on the head frame tomorrow, and then we should be ready to go with that. But I'm looking to spend another 2 or 3 days in the field this week, and I'd like to get that accomplished. The head frame up, tested, and everything, and advance to the point where I can put in that next timber set. We also are apparently digging material that looks like ore, along with what looks like low-grade and or waste. And so we have a couple samples off to the assay lab to try and identify for sure what the heck we're doing. Since it's all basically going to a low-grade ore dump anyhow, it's not a huge risk, but it would be nice to know what exactly we're mining and how it should be segregated and what should we be hauling back to the ranch and not. Over the next couple of weeks, should get all that system tested out. No, the Eco Gold X, as I recall, it was $6 per kilo, which right now I'm putting about 2 to 3 kilos per ton of solution, which is 240 gallons roughly. And it's not taking a whole lot of lime to neutralize. So we're looking at making the solution for somewhere around $15 a ton. I did get some analysis of the pregnant solution I was then reusing to do another batch. And the Eco Gold X, the consumption was about 60%, with 40% still remaining in solution. And the lime also appeared to be somewhere around 50% consumption. So because you're recycling, it doesn't cost the same the second time. My guess is right now we should be about $10 in chemical cost per every half a ton of ore that we process. And therefore, the chemical cost is certainly not prohibitive when you're using what would be, for a big mining company, a high grade ore. For a micro operation, it's what you got to have. But I mean, we're over half an ounce to the ton, the ore grade. And so, you know, the chemical cost is definitely quite reasonable for what we're doing. We have, okay, take care, blind dude. Yeah, if you have any questions, just write them down and ask them next Monday, 6 o'clock Montana timing. And so anyhow, the situation seems good in the chemical end. In terms of the resin end, we still haven't gotten the instructions from that resin supplier on how to properly ash it. Yeah, we've still got a lot of tuning to do. I really don't know, Tricky. I'm waiting for the samples to come back from the lab. Between each stage of that system, I have a bleeder valve, so I can take a sample, and and that allows me to tell exactly what's happening at that flow rate. Right now, I'm running 16 gallons a minute is what I took the samples at. Once I get the numbers back from the lab, then I'll have an idea of what is happening and what I can do. Hopefully, I can increase the throughput, but I don't know yet. And if the recovery rate isn't satisfactory, I may have to put bigger or more filters in there. But we shall see what we shall see. I presume that we're probably getting over 50% recovery right now. It might be like 95% recovery. Have no clue. So as soon as I get some numbers, I'll get it out to everybody. And that will, but I can't tell. It's dirty water. That's all I can tell by sight. But I'm running it through, and whatever recovery I'm getting, I'm getting. I did notice that the resin in the first cartridge seemed noticeably darker than the resin in the final cartridge, which is exactly what you would expect to be happening. And I don't know. And somebody brought up a question earlier on, essentially what else might be happening to the resin, like organics and other things like that. I really don't know. As long as I can get a high enough loading factor to make me happy, and we're ashing the resin, we're destroying it anyway, it's not terribly important. If you wanted to reuse the resin, then those questions become very important. But as long as it's just a single use of the resin, not terribly critical. It either works or it doesn't. If it doesn't work, then you got to find out why and address the issues depending upon what. But we should know in the next couple of days. So I got them the samples like Friday morning, so should be within the next couple of days. In terms of the assays of the stuff in the decline, probably next week before I get answered. I'll probably be digging blind again this weekend. Robert's conventional activated charcoal doesn't do a real good job with thiosulfate solutions. That's why the kind of default option is resin. If you do careful activation and stuff, you can probably use charcoal. And, I know it can be done, but as a general rule, with the thiosulfate solutions, you use the resin. Well, the problem with that, Chris, right now is that it's dump material and there's some organics in it. Not a whole lot, but there is some organics. Now, the stuff that I'm mining now has no organics in it. Of course, that stuff's going to be just pure rock, so it shouldn't be a problem there. But we shall see what we shall see. The numbers are what the numbers come back. I hope it looks really good. We'll find out. I was quite pleased when we ran this these resin samples that Chris sent me, that the one came back so good. And that put us right into the economical range right there. And Chris, I wouldn't worry too much about it because this is essentially the same material that I leached to get the solution that we used to do the bottle roll testing. So I don't think it'll be too big. Yeah. So decrease the loading factor, but is it a significant or an important amount? I don't know. We'll find out. And it'll be interesting to see what that resin sample the salesman sends me comes back to, because it's supposed to be specifically designed for this application. So one would expect it to, recover better than what we're currently getting. We shall see what we shall see. It also may be more specific and selective, and that may or may not be an improvement compared to what we're doing just because of what's actually in solution. It may not be a big issue. I don't know. We'll find out. Also, as I keep recycling the pregnant, the leach solution, certain things are going to tend to build up too. And we'll see how that affects it in the long run. Does it poison it? Do they need to be extracted? Or can you only get so many uses out of the stuff before you have to do something with it? Don't know yet. Lots and lots of things to find out. Right now, the priorities are those things that have to be done before dihydrogen monoxide freezes. And 10 days still good. 10 days out, it's still just barely down to freezing, which we can get through at night because I got everything all tarped and all that massive solution in there, and the soil underneath will provide a lot of residual heat as long as it's only getting 1 or 2 degrees below freezing. Heck, I don't even know that solution would freeze at 1 or 2 degrees below freezing, because of the dissolved chemicals in it. Don't know. But haven't had any problems so far. And Lord willing, and the river don't rise, we'll get through until winter. And then I'll have a lot of golden resin that we can be playing with then. But until that mill gets shut down for the season, my most effective stratagem is to get as much gold as possible in resin, and then we'll go from there. Well, I suppose I could, but if it starts getting close to freezing, I need to just shut it down, empty the filter housings, and that whole filter assembly is literally just hanging on that tote. All I have to do is undo the input hose, and I can literally, that's it. Undo the input hose, pick it up, and carry it off. That quick. I could do it in a minute. If it's going to get, to a hard freeze, empty the filter housings, kind of drain everything, put it inside the building. It'll be fine for now. Once it gets to where it's, dropping to 10 degrees and things like that, it's like, no, sorry, just not doable. So we shall see what we shall see. In the meantime, I really like digging rock. It's kind of fun carving the decline. I'm enjoying that. So we shall see what we shall see. I'm pretty sure that once Eva gets to run the head frame, where she's the person on the button raising and lowering, that she'll enjoy that too. But we shall see what we shall see again. Any questions or anything at this point? I know we had one newbie this evening, and that was good. Minus 60. Yeah. That would be below the periodic table, wouldn't it? Bell chart. Define bell chart, Chris. Again, there's a lot of variables out there. So anything where there's a chance of it actually freezing, I wouldn't want to take a chance if it's even going to get close to that. Wind can be outrageous out there too. Things like that. I was up on the roof doing a little work. It blew the ladder down. Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, he. Oh, okay. Well, right now it's 10 feet away. It's pretty easy. Little one up. Okay. Yeah. Eventually, yeah. But it's going to be a while before we get there. It'll be next season before we need to worry about it. In terms of the staying claims, yeah, he took a GoPro and was wearing it. And we spent, 4 hours editing that video the other night? Yeah. Just cutting it down. Because one of the problems is you got to make it fun to watch, which means you got to it can't be the same kind of stuff for a long period of time and such. And he had just a huge amount of video that we had to go through and try and pick out the good parts. It took a little while, but it was also educational for him because now he's got a much better idea of what kind of video to take. My last video on the decline there, well, even the filter housing stuff, total edit time was less than 15 minutes. Compiling and uploading doesn't matter, but I mean, just putting the chunks together and then saving it and hitting compile, less than 15 minutes. Yeah, tricky. And when I'm out the ranch, when I'm doing roof work and things like that, I'll have Eva out there just as a safety person too. So in case something goes awry, there's somebody there who at a minimum can drive to cell phone range and call for help. Yeah, David, that was quite the hike those guys were on. I can imagine how much fun it would be if they had to carry the stakes with them. That's the nice thing about blazing a tree is at least you don't have to carry 4x4s. What I was doing this year, I was having to carry 4x4s, and that was strenuous at times. Oh, hopefully we'll get more video from Jim on a regular basis. And I'll keep you updated on my stuff this winter. We got extraction of gold from the resin. And you can just use them as you find them. Yeah, it's not much fun, but it's better to have someone there to help keep you alive. This winter I'll be making some videos. Chris and I are still working on the concept of some kind of calorimetric test for gold in this solution. Have lots of options to play with there. Still got to figure out how to get the gold out of the resin. Still have other resin options to test and things like that. Oh, I always need to hit the hay. The problem is I can't stay asleep. Last night it was tough going to sleep. And then once I did, after about 5 hours, I woke up and I was thinking about what I needed to do at the ranch and at the decline and this and that and the other. And I mean, I don't think Eva was awake or noticed, but at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm here at the desk with a protractor and a ruler doing some calculations because I have that decline and I have the existing timbering here. And it started at 2 foot between the rock and the timbering. And it was more down at this end. Plus, I'm also taking it at 5 degrees steeper. And the distance, as I recall, is 42 inches across that top. Now, if I take an 8-foot 4x6 and cut it at 42 inches, will the remaining chunk be long enough to get to the new bottom? I can measure what it is now, but not what it's going to be, you know? No caffeine after. I don't drink coffee. I do energy drinks, but not after 6. It's just a matter of, I'm trying to think, how can I solve this problem, which is a lot easier not to think about when you're actually at the problem working to solve it. So these are some of the things that, literally keep me awake at night, but it's not a big problem. But yeah, I'll probably sleep okay. When I'm out there at the mine, when I'm working my butt off, and especially now when the sun goes down at 6 o'clock, 6:30 at the latest, but working light is like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm just laying in there. I sleep pretty good. Work my butt off for, 8, 10 hours. Oh yeah. Yeah, that helps me sleep. Turn off your brain. Not very good at that, David, until I have solved the problem. Once I've got a solution, then I can usually rest. But that rarely happens. But when it does happen, when you got it right there, Chris, and you got to get up and write it down, it's tough to get back to sleep too. And it's not the weather news or anything like that. It's just pure the problems I'm trying to solve. That's my brain. It's a problem solving machine, so to speak. That's what it wants to do. And when it's got a problem to solve, it doesn't like to stop until it's solved it. And so I say it was a bit. I think you had any idea when I went to sleep last night, little one? It was a little early for usual, but
like 10:30, I believe.
Yeah, 10:30.
And you were laying awake and drumming on your stomach till about midnight, 1 in the morning.
Okay, so I went to sleep about midnight.
Well, you kept dozing off and snoring, and then then your eyes would open again, and you'd start drumming on your stomach, and then next thing I know, I'm hearing snores. This is the way you are. I'm used to this.
And so, anyhow, assuming I fell asleep around midnight, which sounds about right to me, I probably got about 4 or 5 hours sleep, which is adequate. Yeah. And but when I'm working hard for a day, it's a lot easier to just go to sleep. And I'm also, my body is handling the exercise better in terms of, this weekend, I basically was nonstop all day Saturday. And so, like 9 hours, 10 hours of breaking rock and like that. And then, driving home too. And beforehand, making breakfast and everything. But yeah, I say it just varies. Yeah. And I agree, Roberts. Sometimes I'll take naps. I took a nap before the live stream today. I got about, I don't know, half hour to an hour, something like that. I don't think I woke up till a little after 5. But say it's not a big deal. Sometimes I say I'll just lay there for hours and can't sleep. Sometimes I'm just too awake. And I found out if I just lay there and just let my mind wander and this and that and the other, somehow I'll get rest. Eva can tell how I'm sleeping. A lot of times I will snore and I won't know it. I would be willing to swear I was not asleep. And she's like, well, you're snoring. It's like, well, I didn't hear it. Well, that's your problem. I heard it. And
literally, Usually people, he will be sitting there snoring in the middle of the night like a freight train. And I nudge him a little bit to get him to roll over so he stops snoring. And he'll say, "What? I'm wide awake." And I'm like, "No, you're snoring again."
So apparently I'm kind of like lucid sleeping. I don't know, but if I get up in the morning and I'm well enough rested to get through the day, okay, what's the problem? So I'm not usually fatigued, but my sleep is not extremely regular either. Oh, but yeah, that's looking forward to digging more rock out. The Hilti's beating it up pretty good, with the exception of that hard quartzite. I mean, not quartzite. It's polycrystalline quartz. And except for that vein-like quartz there, it's all busting up just fine. No problem. It's fractured enough that I can bust it up pretty easy. Okay, Jeff, you take care. And so I don't foresee any problems at this stage of the operation advancing with the Hilti. Maybe later on we'll have to do Sierra Blaster or something. We'll just have to see what happens. Yeah, I can also turn on the computer to, videos where it's like doing news or this, and I'll nod off, like Timcast or something like that. It seems easier for me to fall asleep when there's something of no consequence in the background that's kind of occupying my brain so that it can't really do anything else. And then I'll just fall off asleep in the middle of that. It seems to be better than silence. Luckily, I don't have a problem falling asleep with lights on because Eva's up hours after I am reading. And I can get to sleep without a problem. So that wasn't the issue last night. It was the problems out at the ranch that I was trying to address, and the problems down the decline. And again, I'm still not exactly sure what I'm going to do in that decline. I'm going to have to go in and actually measure the vertical height that currently exists, calculate an approximate increase in depth once I make the cut, and then figure out whether or not the posts are going to be long enough. If they're not, here's another complication: that the pole on the roof jack only extends to roughly 4 feet. So that gives me a limitation there, although I can always put blocking under it or something. That would depend, Chris, on whether or not it was something of any interest or not. If it's something of no terrible interest, it doesn't matter to me. But yeah, if it was something that was interesting, then you're having to be more alert. But I say I'm not sure exactly what. By the way, just for everyone's thing, an 8-foot 4x6 pressure treated here is running $42. So I don't really want to just buy any extra for no good reason. So let's say we shall see. I will come up with something. I'm not horribly worried. Among other things, I have, I believe I still have a 5-foot corner stake, 4x4 in the truck. I'll have to double check on that. But if so, then that could be one post, and the 8-footer could be cut down to whatever it needs to be. And then the stub that I have left over from last weekend can be the cap, because it's well over 42 inches. But we shall see what we shall see. I can always replace stuff later too, So that's the evil plan. Any questions here? By the way, what do you mean by dunnage, Chris? Oh. Yeah. Yeah, differential equations, that would work. Yep. Yeah, something like that again. It's complex enough that your mind can't follow it, but not interesting enough that your mind worries about not following it. Any questions, anybody? All righty. And again, thanks to Chris. Those filter housings, cartridges, and stuff were easy to deal with, a lot cheaper. And I thought over at the hardware store, the Culligan brand, same filter housing basically is $40. And I think they were 15. Oh, yeah. We'll see what I got. I say I hate to do something and then undo it. Okay, see you, Tricky. Yeah, there's lots of ways I can do it. I just would prefer to do it right the first time. I mean, hell, I've got 6x6s and 8x8s out there too that I could cut down. There's some of that wood's still in pretty strong shape. Some of it is just crap. So luckily Eva enjoys keeping a fire going, and it's pretty easy to do. No, probably don't. We're just doing it for a little extra durability. Redwood would probably be more than adequate. Did you see the pictures? Yes, I did, Tricky. Well, lots of sulfides and such. Yep. Yeah, I'd say there's a lot of possibilities there, Chris. And I'll play it as I see it. The one problem is there is no way I can take that material out of there without completely removing the support to the existing cap, because it's resting on the floor there. Oh, I'm sure there's lots of mine safety handbooks. I think so, Tricky. That was last week, I believe. Yes, I did. Jeremy, I think the answer is no, but if Chris is still watching, he will have a definitive answer for you. Yeah, I recall that, Tricky. Thank you. Chris, you have to be a U.S. citizen to stake a claim, don't you? Or a U.S. company? I mean, I don't know. We'll see if I even need to worry about it, Chris. That's why I say I worry about it when I get there. But that's why I was in my little brain. So we shall see what we shall see. So there's various options, not the least of which is once I get there, if I can't, then I'll, stop. But yeah, there's plenty of timber and stuff laying around. I should be able to fabric cobble something. Bye, Tricky. No. Yeah, Kodak. Yeah, that was pretty expensive there. The one I got was I think it was like 60 some bucks or something, but that was from Keen Engineering. You might want to check. They have a bunch of books for sale. Yeah, David, I don't think hard hat would help me if that came down. But And I say there's a lot of possibilities as to how I can deal with that. It's not on keen anymore? Okay. So not the least of which is I could get if I'm that far down, I could even get, double cap, put like an 8x8 on top of the, 4x6. Give me some more height that way. But also make it a little stronger. Couldn't hurt. But we shall see what we shall see. Say I'm not worried about it at this point. Oh, any questions, anybody? And thanks for the question, Jeremy. That's what we like to do here, is answer questions. Any more questions? Going once. Good night, Gracie. Nice, David. Again, you still wind up with a bunch of temporary stuff, but I can say I got a bunch of 2x12 out there. I could cut several of those, screw one up, another one, screw it up like that until I get down to the level where I have posts for. Kevin, I used, I think it's Pacific Steel here. It's the only steel company in town. For larger volumes, I can get it from, there's a steel company in Great Falls that has a truck that comes here once or twice a week. But yeah, hopefully Jim will be here next week with a big giant rack. Thank you, Patrick. What time is it over there in Oz right now, Patrick? Absolutely. You always put the cap on top of the post, Jeff. That's a requirement. Fasteners are nowhere near as strong as the compressive strength of the post. And say that's one of the things. Also best to run the 230 PM. Well, that's not too bad. It's also good to block it so it can't shift sideways like this either. And the usual way to do that would be take your cap and run it all the way from rib to rib. In this case, because I've already got, lagging there, that's not easy. Oh, I'm planning on just putting a cap just this side, just uphill of that skanky looking support and everything, get it in solid, and then I'll have to cut those supports out because they're sitting on a cross tie basically. And that cross tie has to go. They're not socketed into the floor. They're sitting on top of a cross tie. And since I'm digging out the rock beneath that cross tie's got to go, so there won't be any support for those anyway. I've got to completely eliminate the need for those posts. Oh, Vegemite. Eva's going to get some of that sometime and try it out.
Yeah, I want to try Marmite and Vegemite. I keep hearing that there's a functional difference there.
I'll try it. I won't guarantee I'll eat it. Just try it. Okay. Any questions, anybody? Going twice. Jeff, you're weird. Patrick says Marmite's for sissies. Well, she's a girl. That's close.
Well, I want to try it anyway. How can I determine that if I don't try it?
Yeah, they did a pretty bad job there, Chris. Good night, Chris. And I have no idea when your shirt's going to show up. I should have some idea in the next day or two, I would think.
Well, actually, we can't order it until like after the 3rd, remember?
Didn't we order it?
No, we didn't because the debit card,
Oh, that's right. It was some weird.
we're waiting for the Patreon money to come into
Yeah.
the Penthouse.
It wouldn't take our debit card for some reason. Don't know why. Alrighty. Well, looks like that's about it for tonight. So thank you all for showing up, and thank you for treating the new guy so nice. That's exactly what I would have expected. And I hope to have some more interesting stuff for you over the next couple of weeks here. So happy prospecting, and keep it safe out there. Night, Kodak. What? Cancel, save, end.